Yeah, most of them have driven fast cars before, but these are seriously quick, particularly around the banking here. And in those wet conditions yesterday, that was a bit of a test for some of these guys. Some of them even elected not to go out for qualifying, but now it's dry conditions. They haven't really had an awful lot of practice time this weekend, because yesterday there were some red flag stoppages in the first session in particular, I gather, which I was actually running around the paddock, so I didn't really see much. And then the second session, there was, I think, one stoppage as well. So nobody's got an awful lot of track time here. And then, of course, the qualifying session, which was only 15 minutes, was wet as well. So a lot of drivers going into this race with not a lot of track time prior to the start of this race. And
several drivers in the field, not a lot of experience in prototype machinery anyway. And think about it, we say kind of the little brother to the prototypes in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Also think about FIA driver rankings, and they go from platinum to gold to silver to bronze. Mine would actually be rust. And we actually have a car that just spun coming out of the kink on the pace lap. But talk about those driver ratings. You have to be silver or bronze, nothing higher than silver or bronze to run in the prototype challenge category. And that just shows you that this is a stepping stone series to the big leagues.
That's another spinner, isn't it? That's number 55 car. That's Nico Rieger, 20-year-old from Houston, Texas. He won last year's MX-5 Global Cup Series, the Mazda MX-5 Series, and with it won the Mazda Road to 24 scholarship, which has enabled him to move up into the prototypes. That's a big jump from a Mazda MX-5 to an LMP3 prototype Norma M30, and Nico spun it down there. He's not got an awful lot of laps this weekend. He's one of the drivers that doesn't have a lot of laps. Actually, his older brother Timo, with whom he will be sharing a car, has got precisely 4 laps under his belt this weekend.
All of 4 laps. And think about it too. I said the temperature probably right around 70 degrees. That's relatively cool. These Michelin racing slicks need temperature, they need pressure to have grip. Cars do not have traction control, so as they're warming these tires up in and out of the throttle a little bit, you get that rear wheel spinning because of too much horsepower. That big 5-liter V8 in the back of these chassis can spin those tires up, and around you go.
Around you go. We see 2 people do it already. One through the kink, that'll have got his attention, and then Nico there coming out of the slower West Horseshoe. But they're all present and correct. I think everybody got going again. They can make up their correct grid positions. So we're beginning to line up now 2 by 2 as they go around NASCAR banking, ready for the start of this 3-hour race.
And as the cars line up, getting ready for the start, you see the safety car, the pace car pulling away a bit. It'll be interesting to see. You've got to be careful down into turn 1. We talk about cool tires, heavy braking as they're going to accelerate down here and drop off of the super speedway into turn 1. You got to be careful not to lock those brakes.
Gosh, they're going slowly through 3 and 4, Brian.
And Garrett Grist has really backed the pace off. Pace car is almost into pit lane already, and Grist just crawling along outside that black and yellow number 51, that brightly colored, multicolored blue number 10. Stephen McAleer behind the wheel there. He will start, he'll hand over to Kenton Cook, and then he'll finish on the 3rd stint. 3 hours this race is, so if you made that mistake, you have to put it behind you there at the start. And if you didn't qualify yesterday, that's okay. You'll start at the back, but you've got 3 hours to make it up. Grist crawling, very slow pace, looking for the green flag, starter looking down, getting to pit in, and expect these V8s to come to life at the drop of the green. There it is, and Grist with a huge jump over McAleer and up the inside. Anthony Simoni in that burgundy car looks to the inside, heavy braking into 1. McAleer stays on the outside in the blue number 10. Can he hold it, Jeremy?
Yeah, maybe just about. They're going to go sideways through the kink there. There's a kink there, isn't there? That right and left bit, which we saw that McAleer was able to get that jump and up into second place. You know, the stewards are not going to be very happy with that start. The drivers are told they must maintain pace car speed, or they're not on that pace lap as they come up to the green flag. Clearly, it would appear to me that Grist didn't do that. I think there might be a bit of a tongue wagging going on there. But anyhow, it was a clean start, and it is Garrett Grist that leads from Stephen McAleer.
And everybody has gotten through the first several corners. Remember, it was the kink and the West Horseshoe that created the problems on the pace lap. But Garrett Grist, and then a little lockup. like the 5th place car back in there, the 55 perhaps of Nico Rieger with a little lockup on the front in the braking zone of turn 6, and Grist with a big jump as they get onto the trial.
And it was wet yesterday, so you were talking about during the qualifying session they had to dial the brake pressure to the back of the car yesterday. There's no warm-up to get ready for this race. No, just that 1 hour exploratory lap before the start race. So we've got to get that brake balance set again before the start.
Remember, on a prototype car, a race car, you can move braking force to the front or back. And what Jeremy was talking about, in the rain, you don't transfer as much weight under braking. You don't have as good a braking capability, and so you've got to adjust your brake bias towards the rear a little bit. Without that opportunity to get everything set perfectly, it's going to take a few laps to get brake bias set. The other question is, Jeremy, very different racetrack than these guys have been in all weekend long. That heavy rain yesterday has washed a lot of the Michelin rubber off. Some of it was put back down with some practice sessions earlier today. And Grist now with lockup into 1. But there, it's going to take
the 74 car. They took a big dive to the inside. That was Ben Waddell trying to find a way past Lance Wilsey in car number 33. Ben Waddell in number 74. He started in the 8th position, actually lost the place on that opening lap, did Ben Waddell, the youngster from Colorado. Just a little while ago, he had a good run going yesterday in qualifying. Unfortunately, he hit a lot of traffic on his final lap, so wasn't able to improve, and the track conditions were certainly getting better in the closing minutes of that session yesterday. So he didn't qualify as well as he liked. He would have liked it, Ben Waddell, but he's looking to make some ground in the early stages.
And he's putting the pressure on the 33 of Lance Wilsey right now, trying to get that position, trying to move forward. It's interesting when you look at the driver pairing in the 74 car, Ben Waddell and Wyatt Schwab, they weigh 100 pounds different than each other.
Yes.
Ben looks like a fullback, which he actually played in high school, and Wyatt 100 pounds lighter.
Yeah,
it's several inches
like
shorter.
A gymnast. He's 5'2". Is Wyatt Schwab, and 5'2" against. Well, he claims to be 6, but I guess he's about 6'4" with Ben. He's certainly solidly built.
Good move in to the bus stop. See the 40 moving forward. Keith Grant sharing that car with his brother. Both of them, a lot of experience in the Formula Atlantic category. Talking to Jim Griffith, who manages and owns that team with his wife Pam, and he said it's really funny. David is faster in the Atlantic car, but Keith seems to be faster in the prototype. They really like the way that prototype feels, and he's able to wheel it around. 74 now coming under attack. And Fluker, teammate in the 47. And a slow-moving car there. Is that the 40? In turn 1, a little wide, dropped back. The 74, the 47, 33 all got by. You'll see some tire smoke. These cars do not have anti-lock brakes. We talked about that earlier. And getting that brake bias sorted right now is going to be key. You don't want to lock those front brakes, any brake for that matter, but you don't want to lock the fronts for any period of time. You'll get what's known as a flat spot. When the tire rolls to that flat spot, it'll stay, lock up again, and it just creates an ever-increasing problem, and then the vibration gets to the point where you can't drive the car anymore. So these guys have to be a bit careful.
Here's number 11 with Mo Smith. Must have a spin on that second lap, so he's way down at the back of the pack, almost a half a lap down, but he is still running again. Doesn't seem to be any damage on that Sim Raceway Motorsport car. A new team to this championship for 2019.
One thing that this category does, though, is it breeds some great racing, as Fluker now beginning to put the pressure and has now gotten by Wilsey in the 33. Cars seem to be so even. Two different chassis out there right now, the Ligier and the Norma. The 33, that beautiful white with the blue and red highlights on it, is one of the Ligier chassis. And you'll hear the drivers say that they feel like the Norma might be a little faster in a straight line, a little more difficult to draft off of. And there are 5 Normas, I should say, in the field right now. The second place car, Stephen McAleer, that multicolored blue right there in the middle running second, is one of those Norma chassis, and Anthony Simoni right behind him in the red 23, also in a Norma. But it's Garrett Grist out in front still. He qualified on the pole. Spectacular lap in the rain yesterday as the track began to get a little quicker each session. or each lap, I should say, in the rain, and laid down a lap that was over 2 seconds faster than Stephen McAleer. McAleer said, yeah, I blew it on the last lap. I had a great one going, and it would have been good enough for the pole, but I spun in the bus stop on the last lap. So starting on the front row is not a bad thing, but yeah, there was a lot of head shaking going on for Stephen McAleer.
Woulda, coulda,
yeah,
woulda,
and that's exactly what I said to him. How often have we said that in racing?
Fastest lap there for Anthony Simone in that third place car. He was challenging Stephen McAleer going into turn one. I don't think he was quite able to make it stick then, but that's a big battle going on there for second and third. And Garrett Grist certainly isn't pulling away at the front of the field.
Well, it's funny, there seems to be a little ebb and flow. There's a little bit of smoke there. I couldn't tell if that perhaps was one of the front brakes locking on Garrett Grist going into the bus stop. There seems to be some ebb and flow, though. He pulls out in certain areas of the racetrack, and then it closes back down in others. And it may be, just doesn't have the handling of that Ligier just quite where he wants it right now.
Yeah, I can say, you know, the Norman Ligier making their speed in different ways. The Norma certainly is pretty fleet on the straights, generally speaking. The Ligier perhaps a little bit better through the corners. We'll have to see how that develops.
And there's a lot of smoke out of the 51 in the middle of turn one. And once again, kind of hard to see if it's coming off of the left front under braking or if it's coming out of the engine department. Power plants here are pretty bulletproof. They'll run 10,000 kilometers before they need to be rebuilt. Although we've seen a couple of engine problems this weekend, typically that's not a concern. Let's see if perhaps into this right-hand corner, Grist on the brakes heavily into that west horseshoe as Simone looks to the inside of McAleer. Let's look down in turn one, and it looks to me like it's coming off the back of the car, not the front. I wouldn't expect to see a rear tire locking in there. It is the more unweighted tire, that left rear, as you brake and the loads go diagonally across to the right front. But understand the start was reviewed and there was no action, but some concern here for the 51. Jeremy, do you think that that could be some type of an oil leak when the car is in a left-hand corner? Have to keep an eye on it.
Yeah, we will keep an eye on it, certainly, but he's able to stretch out just a little bit there as once again Stephen McAleer coming under intense pressure from Anthony Simone going into the bus stop chicane. We're now on lap 5 last time around. 145.1 for our race leader Garrett Grist, almost identical lap time to the previous lap as well, so super consistency at the front of the field. Meanwhile, up into 5th place now is Alex Barron in car number 64. He's found a way past Nico Rieger on that last lap, and now he's putting the pressure on Aaron Povoledo in car number 25 for 4th position.
Good battles all around the racetrack. You saw there the number 7, Blake Mount, Arizona native, now lives in Colorado, and he's got some Formula car experience. Now into the prototypes. 33 under attack.
This is the 4-car battle also going into turn 1 there for 10th position with Keith Grant and Blake Mount absolutely side by side, and Leo Lamelas is right behind them as well. Just ahead of them is Lance Wills. It's a great battle.
I think Keith Grant is the yellow car that we saw slow earlier in turn 1 and lose several positions, and he's now a man on a mission. He wants to get those back. But this is where the endurance aspect comes in. This is the longest race Prototype Challenge has run. There'll be another 3-hour race later in the year at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. They're used to running shorter sprint races. I think as a driver, Jeremy, these guys need to keep in mind there is time to get this done. You don't need to get it done right now.
Absolutely, and there certainly have been a few reliability issues from several of the teams during the practice day yesterday. So they're going to keep an eye on that. You know, it is a long race. It's a 3-hour race. So as you say, there's no point in taking too much out of the car too soon. New fastest lap there was last time around for Garrett Grist, down into the 44s, 144.936, the new fastest lap of the race. It's about 3/4 of a second away from the fastest lap record set last year by Daniel Modd, also in Illusion.
Blake Mount there in the 7, the number 4 right behind him, Leo Lamelas. And we'll watch the leaders head down into turn 1, and we'll look for that telltale smoke that we've seen before. Don't see it this lap as you stay on the battle there.
Just 1/100th of a second of a lap slower that last time around. for Garrett Grist. So again, super consistency.
And this is what prototype challenge racing is all about. It's just this close, and I think it was close enough that they actually touched the 33 there on the inside. Lance Wilsey under attack from the 40, Keith Grant.
Brilliant stuff. And the number 7 and 4, they were side by side as well, just a few car lengths behind them.
19 cars in the field today. Expect this field to grow. Look at this. On the high banks here at Daytona, 180 miles an hour. I think they may have touched a little bit. It may be red, white, and blue with some yellow highlights after this there on the wheel well of the right front. We'll see holding on in that 33 machine. A great battle, and he's a guy with a tremendous amount of experience. He's almost as old as I am, not quite, but just 1 year short of that, but just extensive experience, whether it was in GT machinery, what's now the Michelin Pilot Series. He's running the Tudor Series, Ferrari Challenge, WeatherTech. He's running just about anything and everything, and really he's kind of raced all over the world, if my memory serves me correctly. And he's a guy that loves to race Hard Charger. And he's being attacked right now, and there's Grant underneath on the way into the bus stop. Can he hold it?
Great racing there. Just coming across the line now to complete lap 7. 45.2 that time around. Previous lap it was Anthony Simoni who got a new fastest lap at 144.7.
Next up for Lance Wilsey, he's going to have to try to hold off now Leo Lamelas in the number 4. I think that pass on the way into the bus stop just kind of caught Wilsey off guard just a little bit, put him off his game, and Lamelas right there to pounce and all over the back of Wilsey as they come onto the tri-oval.
Yeah, so Lamelas says he's really putting on a charge the last few laps, and he's got himself into the groove now. Started in the 16th position and up into 11th, trying to make that 10th.
I wonder what happened though. Let's take a look. As he comes down here, it looks like he's going to have him. I think what happens down in turn 1, kind of squeezes down. Is there contact? Yeah, there may have been. Wilsey goes around. The 7 sneaks through Blake Mount, but I don't know if he just got down there on the transition and the car got upset, or if there was actually contact, as we saw Lamelas trying to move around the outside. That incident's going to be reviewed by the officials. As Wilsey now back underway. We had a shot of him and then they kind of disappeared for a moment. When we came back, obviously the separation between the two cars was pretty great, and now we know why. And that's where I don't know that anybody locked tires long enough to flat spot tires, so they should, I would think, be able to continue kind of no harm, no foul, but much like we were talking about on the pace laps of putting things behind you. We're 2 hours and 45 minutes yet to go. So you can't let that get to you. You've got to just put your head down, focus forward.
You've got to be really careful. Anthony Simoni, new fastest lap on that last lap, 144.430 for the Canadian in car number 23 in 3rd position. Really got the pressure on Stephen McAleer, and those two edging closer again now to Garrett Grist. The gap was out to 1.7 seconds. It was exactly a second as they came past the stripe to complete lap 8.
Wonder if Anthony Simoni's lap came with a draft, because he's gotten past McAleer, and it's one of those things that in talking to the drivers, the cars do draft well, especially the same manufacturer chassis, and those Normas are known to be a mile an hour or two quicker in a straight line. I wonder if he was able to take advantage of the draft that Stephen McAleer's number 10 Norma chassis gave him. One thing's for sure, you can see these drivers pressing hard through the bus stop. A lot of motion on these cars with the shock package that's on it. You see it go through the bumps there on that left-right on the way into the bus stop. Car really responds, kind of pogoing up and down a little bit.
Interesting now to see if Simoni can close in on his fellow Canadian Garrett Grist, who still leads across the stripe. He goes one more time. 1 minute 40. It's the lap times. It comes across a 144.9 again for Garrett Grist. His last. Well, the last half a dozen laps, 45-1, 45-1, 44-9, 44-9, 45-2, 44-9. Love that consistency, Brian.
Absolutely, and that's one of the things that the engineers and the drivers both have said about the Michelin tire, is that it is incredibly consistent. Yes, it falls away just a little bit like any racing tire will do, but the balance of the car stays the same. And I think that's the thing that's absolutely the key, Jeremy, is when a tire goes away, you don't want it to change the balance of the car and have a car that goes from perhaps understeering or pushing to loose. You want it to just lose a little grip and the lap time falls off slightly. And that's exactly what we've seen with the Michelins on these LMP3 based machines. One thing's for sure, Stephen McAleer is not going to let Anthony Simoni get away by any stretch of the imagination. He'll see if he can use a little bit of the draft and see if they can close down on Garrett Grist. The problem there for the two, off pace just a little bit. John Brownson. I don't know if he had a problem coming out of turn one, or
I'm not sure. He just turned his best lap of the race actually on that lap. So I think maybe he had a bit of a moment down there. I didn't see what it was, but you saw it. He was he ran the. He's last year's MPC champion in this.
He's the final champion.
The final winner and the final champion.
Okay, let's see what happens.
See what happened. He struck. He did the Michelin Encore. Oh. Okay, just lost it on the braking. He did the Michelin Encore at Sebring the end of last season. Struggled there just to get used to the car. Didn't get a lot of laps in and really struggled. And he was a bit daunted yesterday the first time in a wet. But he'd been coming up to coming to grips with the car during the race. He just turned his best lap, as I say, but had a bit of a moment there on the braking.
And that to me just looked like the rear tires locked, and that could just be simple brake bias imbalance, or perhaps the paddle shift not working very well and not matching the revs on the downshift, locking the rear tires for just an instant. But at any rate, you saw the problem for Brownson. It wasn't a big one. He didn't go completely around, just kind of a little lazy half spin, and now a car spinning off of the exit of turn 6. Don't see any contact. He looks to be on his own. Grist still leads over Anthony Simoni, then Stephen McAleer. It's Ligier chassis in the hands of Grist, and then Norma chassis in the hands of Simoni and McAleer running second and third. Great prototype challenge action. Remember, the 50th anniversary season for the International Motorsports Association. And Prototype Challenge starts that 50th anniversary season off. When you think about it, you look back to John Bishop and Bill France Sr., who started IMSA 50 years ago. They got to be looking and smiling down on what they see here, especially this weekend. What a great group of fans here at the Roar. Boy Scouts are here, Girl Scouts are here. Cool. Lots of fans. It almost looks like the race weekend. The infield almost completely full. Parking-wise, lots of motorhomes, lots of campers.
I think that must have been Mo Smith who spun there, because here come the 3 leaders now, and they're much closer than they were before. There's the number 11 car of Mo Smith. He'd been running at the back of the pack. He had a spin on lap 2. I think that was his second gyration, and he kind of rejoined right with the leaders there, and I think cost Garrett Grist a little bit of momentum. All of a sudden, Garrett Grist last lap around, having been super consistent at around about 1 minute 45 flat. That was a 1 minute 46.1 for our race leader. And now Anthony Simoni is only a few car lengths behind it.
Watching Aaron Pavolito in the 25, and right behind him, James French. French really attacking on Pavolito, and now Pavolito with a little bit of lockup into the International Horseshoe. And that's a great story. Conquest Racing, Eric Bachelart, who was the 1991 Indy Lights champion, went on to drive Indy cars, team owner in the IndyCar Series, also in the Sports Car Series, back in sports car racing.
Who did Eric beat in that season?
He beat all of us a lot. I looked at the rear wing of Eric Bachelart's March Indy Lights car a lot in 1990. Didn't see the front end of it very much in my rearview mirror, but I saw the rear wing a lot from the back. Great driver, great team owner. He's a guy who gets it. He produces really good equipment, and that's what you saw. Aaron Pavolito has a good run going. Ross Schwest, he shares that car with, and Ross is a guy successful for our challenge, also in the Lamborghini World Final in the Lamborghini Cup class, a world champion in that. And he's a guy, he's one of these guys who's going to have to come to grips with no anti-lock brakes and no traction control, and that's one of the learning challenges for drivers who come out of those classes who have those technological, I don't want to call them advances, and I don't want to call them driver aids. That makes it sound like you're helping guys out, but you don't have that help, and so you've got to be the ABS. You've got to be able to feel that brake pedal, get the wheels rolling again if you lock it. You've got to be able to modulate the throttle and work that throttle, get the horsepower to the ground without spinning up those Michelin tires. And that's part of the challenge of these cars. They're good looking, they're fast, and a great battle right now as McAleer trying to hold on to the rear wing of that red number 23 of Anthony Simoni in front. Simoni has closed down considerably on Garrett Grist.
Yeah, it was primarily a result of Grist being held up by the spinner, Mo Smith, rejoining at turn 6 a couple of laps ago. But certainly, you know, Simoni, he has set the fastest lap of the race, and he is on the charge right now, and he's got Garrett Grist. Well, he hasn't very much to his sight, so Grist pulled away just a little bit that infield set.
Still see the telltale smoke out of the left side of the 51 from time to time. It seems odd to me, and it could be that I'm not, and there it is again. It seems to be predominantly in left-hand corners, and it seems to be under braking, but I cannot tell if it's coming from the tire or if it's coming from inside the engine compartment there on the left side.
Now, this 23-year-old from Grimsby, Ontario in Canada, came up through the Mazda Road to Indy open wheel ranks, drove in USF 2000 Pro Mazda and Indy Lights. The last couple of years he's been making a name for himself in sports car racing.
Oh, talk about making a name. Simoni is trying to make quite the impression on Garrett Grist. He's there now. Good run through the triangle, but Grist seems to get off of turn 1 with a little better drive. And look at the gap that gets pulled there. Simoni really closed under braking, but Grist seems a little bit better off the corners. And telltale smoke again out of the 51, this time in a right-hand corner. I don't know that I had seen that before. Through the kink, down to the west horseshoe. Let's look and see. Nothing there, and we'll watch through turn 6. A left-hand corner, that's predominantly where we've seen smoke before, is in left-hand corners, and nothing this time. I wonder if he's got a small flat spot and it just rolls to it occasionally and locks it up. If that's the case, he's got to be extremely careful. These drivers should be able to go about 55 minutes to an hour on fuel. You don't want to have to come in before that because you've burnt a tire. 2 hours and 35 minutes yet to go, so at least another half hour for these drivers on this stint before they would pit. And Simoni right there again.
This is a super battle between those three cars, and then the gap. It's almost 20 seconds now back to Alex Barron making his return to professional racing. He was kind of lucky to be qualified, to be classified as a silver rather than a gold, actually, but he's been out of the sport for such a long time. I think that would explain it, because he used to race in IndyCars, won an IndyCar race, and he's a very talented guy, as Alex Barron. Did a lot of coaching over the last few years, and that is what has made him Simoni to get back in the sport.
Looking again, and I'll tell you where the Norma chassis seems to come alive. It's in the latter quarter of the straightaway. It just seems to close several car lengths down. But one more time, Garrett Grist with a good run off the corner. That was definitely right front lockup on that Michelin tire on the 51 as he headed into the International Horseshoe. And Simoni able to stay a little bit closer this time to Grist through the kink. He's got to be patient. I think Simoni has the better car. Yeah. Keep the pressure on, be patient, get the job done, and now lock up for Aaron Pavolito. Is that Pavolito?
That's number 7 car. So goes 7 cars down this. Leon Nellis, who had been, Blake Mount, who had been putting the pressure on Keith Grant. He seems to have gone missing, hasn't come past yet.
This battle heating up as they're working through the International Horseshoe and back to turn 6. Good stuff. You see the 47 there of Fluker. French in there as well. And Aaron Pavolito, and these 3 drivers have swapped positions over the last couple of laps, and that's what we expect in this prototype challenge category, are those good battles around the racetrack. And look at this. It's the 11 of Smith, who is a little bit further back in the order. We saw the problem earlier. He gets passed on the way into the bus stop, and there is the battle once again. Pavolito in the red and white 75, and right behind him the 47, the Norma chassis. And so we've got the Norma chassis, the black 47 up above, and let's see if we see a different in straight line speed between these 2 cars, much like we have with Garrett Grist and Anthony Simoni. The Norma, the black 47, the Ligier chassis, the white 25, white and red down at the end of the straightaway. I don't see much difference there. The 47 going to see, Fluker's going to see if he can get it done by staying on the outside. And look at Pavolito hanging tough on the inside. There is a little kink here. They clear it, and then they're going to have traffic in front. Pavolito holds onto the position.
It's tight racing there.
And a little lockup. Hey, Pavolito may have a flat spot on the right front as well, and that slows him coming off the corner. And Fluker there to attack yet again.
Some great racing going on here. Number 7 car, by the way, came around slowly and made his way into the pit box. There is service going on there on that number 7 car. We'll see whether he can resume.
James French right there in the white and blue 75, just behind the black 47 of Fluker. He's got a front row seat to this battle. He's going to see if the 74 can get through and then maybe use him as a pick and do the same. But you got 3 very talented drivers lined up there in Fluker, Pavolito, and French. In a great battle, that 3-car train just like the one up in front with Grist, Simoni, and McAleer. Pavolito working by lap traffic. He gets through and kind of stacks up the 47 and the 75, and that's going to give him a little bit of breathing room, at least for now. He can kind of take a breath, relax a little bit. He's got to take care of those Michelins, the front tires on the 25. We've seen him lock those up a couple of times. This battle. That's Fluker trying to get around the lap car, the number 11. Smith, and the 75 looks to the inside. French being careful not to press too hard there. Very experienced driver. He knows he has time. And that's going to separate Fluker from French.
And right behind those, not far behind those, so a couple of seconds so with Nico Rigger and Ben Waddell there having a good dicey. Well, they've exchanged positions on each of the last 2 laps. So it's still Garrett Grist that leads. Last time lap time of 1:45.1 for our race leader. Anthony Simoni in car number 23 in second place. Car number 10, Stephen McAleer, right there in 3rd.
Car leaving pit lane with looked like it had a little damage on the right rear, perhaps some contact out there. As Pavolito, his breathing room has gone away. Once Fluker worked past the 11, he's closed the gap right back down. We'll see if James French can do the same thing. Be interesting to hear from the guys as to how much this racetrack has changed just in the first half hour of this race. As the ambient temperature begins to come up, the track temp will climb as well. And I'm sure they're on the radio with their crew members and their engineers, giving them information as to how the handling of the car is changing as the miles are put on these Michelin tires and as the fuel load is burned down, because that will change the balance of the car as well. And the engineers perhaps making some tire pressures to that next set of Michelins that will go on the pit stop. And a problem, you see the 19 is spun, the waving yellow flags caught some drivers out.
I was just about to say that the Garrett Grist is about to hit the lap traffic. There were a couple of cars there.
It may hit probably what
exactly.
Was it?
Paul LaHaye in number 86 and Brad Baker, number 19, having a battle there. Brad Baker spun it at the East Horseshoe, another Canadian driver, by the way, Garrett Grist and Anthony Simoni, they just about scrambled past him, but that's certainly broken up that battle just a little bit and allowed Garrett Grist to edge away just a bit. Let's have a look at the replay once again.
I think LaHaye sees the 19 backwards and overslows a little bit because he wants to honor the yellow flag, and I'm not sure Garrett Grist was prepared for that. So LaHaye doing what he needed to do with that spun car in front of him, and I think it just kind of caught Garrett Grist out. LaHaye is a neurosurgeon, so certainly a very intelligent guy. He's got great experience driving cars, and he said, hey, we're just kind of testing this out this weekend, and we're going to see what it's like, and if we like it, which so far we do, perhaps Dave House and I will do some more of these races. Perhaps we'll buy in, and that would be a great thing to see. There's the 10 of McAleer.
Yeah, great pairing, those two, Paul LaHaye and Dave House. Combined age of 143. Just gotta love it, those two. Absolutely love it. Actually, they did the Thunderhill 25 hours in December last year. There were 4 drivers in that car. Combined age 244.
That makes me feel good.
Fabulous.
It makes me feel good.
Absolutely love it. My heroes, those two. Particularly Dave House, who came awfully close last year, did he not, to winning the NPC Championship.
And what's the youngest driver pairing in the field?
41.
41.
Average combined age, yes.
A combined age of 41 between, and please tell me that's between 2 drivers and not 3.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah, well, exactly.
It's 2 drivers, yes.
You do have to be 16 years old. So
the 2 Riga brothers, Timo and Nico, they're 22 and 20 respectively, but even younger than those two are Wyatt Schwab, who's 18, and Ben Wardell, who's 23. That's in the number 74 car, currently running in 9th position.
Garrett Grist still leads as Anthony Simoni in the red 23, still under attack. A lot of pressure from Stephen McAleer and that multicolored blue number 10 right behind, and it's really been this way since the drop of the green. Simoni got the best of McAleer several laps in, but then it has really kind of held station back and forth, and to some extent, when we think about fuel, 57 minutes to an hour, it'll be close to do it on 2 stops.
It will.
And it may be one of those things right now that for drivers like McAleer, who's at the back of that train, he's content to run there in the draft, make sure that he's got the fuel. Maybe he can go a lap longer at that point to do the pit stop, and he can come in a lap after the leaders. We'll have to wait and see, and that strategy will have to play out. It will be a 3-minute total pit in to pit out pit stop for all of the competitors. They cannot do it in any shorter time than that, or penalties will be levied. So a 3-minute stop. Last year it was in the 4-minute range and it has been cut considerably. It will be 2.5 minutes at other racetracks, but due to the length of the pit lane and the pit out lane here at Daytona International Speedway, a 3-minute pit stop. Grist now having to work through traffic. That's the 60, running 15th right now. Hamilton behind the wheel. Grist gets through relatively cleanly, and looks like Simoni and McAleer did as well. Indeed, they did. Think about, though, what you're looking at up front with the 51 of Garrett Grist. We were talking about age, and I think it's one of those things where at 23 years old, and we were talking about other drivers who are a little bit more experienced, let's say, and you think about those 3 drivers up front, they're all young guns who are really looking at sports car racing as their future career, and this is a great place to get it done. And they've come from different backgrounds. Stephen McAleer running 3rd in the number 10 is an MX-5 Cup champion, a driver who hasn't driven a Formula car or a high downforce car, and he said probably 10 years, so some adjustment there. But I think it's great to look at some of the young talent in sports cars right now and realize that these guys, I don't want to say gave up a career in open wheel racing, but they just look at the opportunities that exist in the world of sports cars and in the strength of the IMSA-backed series and say, this is a place where I can make a career for myself, I can make a name for myself in this prototype challenge category, an exceptional place to do it. have to be a silver or a bronze rated driver. And when you look at these combinations, it's interesting. As I said, you look at Garrett Grist as a little bit of lockup once again. Grist, 23 years old. Rob Hodes, who he shares the car with, 57. So expect different performance levels. They've got different experience levels. It'll be interesting. Grist will hand over to his teammate for a stint, and then he'll take it back over at the end. So we'll watch different levels of experience and driver skill throughout this event as the driver changes happen.
Yeah, you're right, and doing it for different reasons. You know, Rob Hodes is doing it for fun, and he is the team principal at K2R Motorsports. Bobby Golozinski, who's a long-time crew chief in the IndyCar ranks, he runs that team for Rob, and you know, Garrett is the kind of hard gun. He's looking, as you say, to make a career in this sport. He, right after this race, he hops on a plane to go over to, I think it's Thailand, isn't it, the next round of the Asian Le Mans Series, in which Garrett Grist will be driving there. So you're just getting a good warm-up for his next round, which is in a completely different car on the other side of the world.
And then kind of a different take on that is Stephen McAleer in the 10. We talked about him being one of those young sports car drivers, and he certainly has made a career for himself over the last several years here. A great guy. Typically would be sharing that car with Joe Robillard, who had some work that he had to attend to, as the stock market has been up and down just a little bit. Doesn't affect me or you, Jeremy, because our portfolio isn't that big, but needed to attend to work. And so in his place, Kenton Cook, who has won this championship in 2015, won the Rolex 24 in the Prototype Challenge category in 2016. He's sharing that car this weekend with Stephen McAleer. That should be a very, very strong combination.
Yeah, it certainly should, and they will be in very good shape to win this race. And Kenton Cook, of course, a former champion in the former iteration of this series. This is number 25 and 75 go absolutely side by side down into turn 1.
Pavolito in the red and white 75. We've seen this play out before. Pavolito just being one tough customer to get around, not doing anything wrong, but doing a great job of placing that car in a position that makes it incredibly difficult for James French to get around him. And French, another one of those young drivers with a good background, a good resume, who has turned to sports car racing and said, yeah, I'm going to use that as a stepping stone in my career.
Another guy's on charge, another youngster, is Rodrigo Fluker in kind of the 47. He's finally managed to find a way past Aaron Pavolito a few laps ago, 4 or 5 laps ago, and he's now closed right in on number 64, Alex Barron, and those two are pretty much nose to tail as they head up onto the banking in turns 1 and 2.
French, the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship Prototype Challenge champion in 2017, won the Rolex 24 that year, won Sebring that year. Did they win the 6 hour? I think they did.
Yeah, they won everything.
But they didn't win Petit. But won the championship in just stunning fashion, spending time in the P2 car as well.
You look into the inside there was Anthony Simoni, but unable to make that stick. Garrett Grist holds on just, and 2 more lapped cars right ahead of them as they head toward the East Horseshoe.
It's about to get really busy, as if that wasn't busy enough. Grist in the black and yellow 51, your leader, but Simoni really putting the pressure on now, and Grist a little bit desperate to try to get past the 2 cars in front. Not going to do it at the kink. We'll see if he can get one in the West Horseshoe. Under braking, looks to the inside. Not going to happen, but Simoni, what a move. Puts the 23 down inside. The question is, where's the lap car going to go? Where do you want to be? Grist now gets it done in turn 6. Simoni, can he go with him? He does. Will he get the run? Or will McAleer, with a great charge on the rear wing of the 23, McAleer in that multicolored blue number 10, he may have a run on Simoni, as Grist trying to go around the high side of the lap car in front.
Joel Janko, who is passing. He got the 70 this season with Joel. In 25 last year, where he's celebrating his 70th year, is Joel from the Keys in Florida, driving with George and George this weekend.
Frustration, I'm sure, for Stephen McAleer, as Simoni was able to get past the 70 of Joel Janko on the way into the bus stop. McAleer was not, and that has really put some space between himself and Simoni, but Simoni now on a charge. Take a look here at this move by Simoni. Sees Grist get hung up and thinks that perhaps he can go up the inside. Nothing doing there, and then gets the pick coming off the corner. And there's the move down into turn one. Simoni on the high side. Can he hold it? Grist stays inside. Remember, there is a little kink here. Can you get through side by side? You can, but now Simoni with the inside into the International Horseshoe.
Good respect from both drivers there going through that kink. They could easily have been banging wheels there and trying to make it difficult for the other guy. They both left it so each enough room, and it's Simoni who comes out with the lead.
Oh, Grist! I think they touched right there going into the kink. Grist trying to hold tough there, and Simoni trying to get back to driver's right because that's where you want to enter the kink from. And I think the front splitter of that 51 made contact with the left rear of the 23. Not a problem there, but there's that smoke that we have seen throughout the event off the 51. And I'm wondering if Grist is just having to baby that car just a little bit. If it is a lockup issue, and he's having to baby it just a little bit.
Could be, but as you were talking about earlier on, your fuel consumption certainly is an issue for the vast majority of this team. As I said, there's one team that reckoned they could run an hour and 15 minutes, but everybody else said they're going to be struggling to run a full hour. They were kind of hoping that there might be some full course caution. They were hoping there wasn't one of their team cars involved, obviously, but there have been no caution. It's been flat out all the way so far, and I think several of the teams and drivers out there have to manage their pace to manage their fuel consumption.
I look at it this way. If you can go an hour and 15 minutes on fuel in one of these cars, you'll have plenty to drive to tech because they're going to want to see you after the race. I think that may have been an erroneous fuel calculation as you look at Garrett Grist now in second place. He was our pole sitter. Anthony Simoni pressuring over the last several laps, got by him. And now Grist beginning to fall back to McAleer a little bit just behind. A Norma chassis now out in front. The Ligier of Grist, kind of the meat in the sandwich, because Stephen McAleer and his number 10 Norma really beginning to charge as well. But one more time, the leaders having to work through some lap traffic. 2 hours, 17 minutes yet to go in the Scouts of America three-hour race from here at Daytona International Speedway. Grist with a slide off of the West Horseshoe. We'll see if McAleer can do anything. The third car in the shot there. The fourth one is lap traffic. And McAleer with a good run onto the banking.
He was able to close up a little bit on that lap as well.
This is how the lead was exchanged. Simoni is going to have to go around the high side, and I'm not sure that kind of a strange little wiggle there by Grist, and then Simoni can barely hold on to it, slides up high. It was side by side all the way down to the International Horseshoe, but Simoni with the position on the inside, able to take the lead. And we'll see if Grist can hold on or if he's going to have to give up another spot as McAleer really beginning to pressure.
So 45 minutes gone in this race, almost 45 minutes gone, so another at least 10 minutes before we can expect to see any of the leaders on pit lane.
Only one pace lap, and that was at a very slow speed, so not a lot of fuel being burned there. So you would think at least 55 minutes, I would think, on this first run. Yep. You don't want to gamble too much because you're not exactly sure what you've got, but you really need to go 55 minutes. If you do the math and you go 180 minutes and then you take 6 minutes off of that because you know you're going to make at least 2 pit stops and then start backtracking from the end of the race, you can figure out that it can be done, but they're going to need a good 57, 58 minutes per stint.
Smith's doing a nice job in car number 11. He had those 2 spins earlier on, but he's now closing in quite rapidly on Brad Baker and kind of a 19 behind him. And Brad Baker is not too far behind behind Paul LaHaye in car number 86 as well. Baker, of course, also had a spin just a little while ago.
Smith sharing that 11.
Car slow on pit lane, very slow on pit lane.
Like he's not going to get to his pit stall, I don't believe. Talking about Smith sharing that car with Nico Ronde, very talented race car driver, driven just about any and everything throughout his career. A Barber Dodge Pro Series champion back in 2001, and a great instructor, a great driver coach. And I think that's another great thing about this series. You have a lot of pairings where it's the driver coach driving with, you know, their student. And we're full course caution with 2 hours and 14 minutes left to go. This is going to be interesting. This is not where you wanted to have that caution, because now what do? You need to go farther than that. We'll have to see how long it takes them to get things packed up, but I'm not sure you want to pit right now because you're past driver minimum time, so that's fine for your first driver. You have to do at least 40 minutes.
Under yellow, actually.
And there's a piece of debris on the racetrack, and that's sure why we're going to go full course caution.
And just before the caution came up, I'm presuming, certainly on this lap, number 47, Rodrigo Fluca, the young Peruvian. We talked about him a little while ago, closing up on Alex Barron. Well, he's made that pass now for 4th position. That is going to mean when we get ready for a restart or whatever happens next, whether it's pit stops or whatever, he's right with the leaders. He had been more than 20 seconds behind, 27 seconds behind as he came across the line this time by, but Rodrigo Fluca in car number 47 is into 4th position ahead of the Starworks X-Wing fighter pilot, X-Wing fighter liveried car number 64.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, well, yeah, something like that.
I was letting you go.
Thank you very much. Number 86 car in the pits.
So safety car is out. And 2 minutes and 12 minutes to go. There's a look at the number 10. Stephen McAleer up on the banking, and it looks like you just drive around and it's not a big deal. I can tell you on the banking at low speed like that, it's relatively uncomfortable. The car doesn't want to stay up there.
Number 40 car has got to its pit line. You've got some assistance to get to its pits, to all the engine coverage off that car. And the Polestar Motor Racing team having a good look around at the back end to try and figure out what's wrong. So, 48 minutes down in the race. Car number 23, Anthony Simoni, still leads in a Norma. Car number 23 for 47 Motorsports. Excuse me, for the Alliance Gilbert Motorsports entry. My bad. Anthony Simoni drove for 47 last season. This is the new alliance between Alianza and Gilbert Motorsports. Also carrying the colours, by the way, of Lupus of America, drumming up support for the Lupus Foundation, which is exploring this lupus disease that affects so many people around the world. Very mysterious disease, and that organization working very, very hard to try and find a cure and really why it afflicts people in the first place.
It actually took my aunt's life when, and I believe in the early 60s. I was a very young child at the time, but yeah, it's a horrible disease, and as you said, very mysterious one.
Yeah, Oliver Askew is one of the rising stars of open wheel racing from Jupiter, Florida. His mother suffers from lupus now, and there was one of the Road to Indy races last season, actually it was Indianapolis, that was supporting Lupus Foundation as well, so Oliver was very proud to be part of that association.
To get Oliver Askew in one of these prototype challenge cars.
Well, he was going to come up today. I haven't seen him. If he is, and if you can hear us, Oliver, come up and have a chat with us up here in the booth. We're right next to race control.
As you said, he's one of the rising stars in open wheel racing, but like we were saying, you have to make up your mind at some point in time what direction you're going to go, and I think more and more it's become one of those things where drivers look at a younger age and just go, hey, I'm going to go sports car racing. It's a great opportunity. The cars are good. I'll cut my teeth. I'll move up. There are opportunities for me there. I've said this for a long time, and it's the same way with anything. If you set your sights too narrowly on a goal, you may miss tons of other opportunities that come away because you're too busy looking through that long tube at just that little singular target at the end of it. You need to have a little wider field of vision, perhaps, and you'll see other opportunities that are there.
Well, that's exactly right. And we've got several drivers in this field who, they've done exactly that very, very early in their career. Austin McCusker is a good example of that. Garrett Grist, well, he's been around a little bit longer, certainly. He's 23 years of age now. Rodrigo Fluker from Peru.
What did you just say? He's been around a little longer.
Well,
he's 23.
Austin's not 21 yet. But certainly Garrett had been racing a lot longer than Garrett Grist.
It just sounds funny.
Particularly coming from me.
I was going to say, looking at our hair color standing up here, Jeremy.
Maybe as old as you feel, right?
Yeah, well, there are days.
But number 40 car, unfortunately, just been pushed back into the garage area, so it looks like the brothers' day is done. That's a great shame. David not able to get aboard, it would appear, this weekend, unless they can get the car back out again. Still a long, long way to go. So if it's fixable, I'm sure that the Griffiths, Jim and Pam will, and the whole crew there will get that car back out if they possibly can.
And what a great organization. Back a long time ago, before half the people in that infield were born, I think, Jim Griffith designed and built his own Super V, and I was supposed to drive it in 1987. And the deal never got done, not because of Jim's fault nor mine, but just a great guy. He's been around racing for a long time. And he's kept in line by his wife, Pam, who's probably the most important team member in that organization. If you ever wanted to run an Atlantic car or something like that, that was the place that you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Safety car still out in front of the field. Anthony Simone leads in his Norma, then Garrett Grist. And for Grist, he may really be thoroughly enjoying this full course caution, because that smoke that we saw, if indeed it was getting worse because of a flat spot, then that was going to be an issue. Safety car now comes to pit lane. Starter looking over the field. Green flag waves, and we're back racing, and we're closing in on the time for pit stops, 2 hours and 7 minutes. So we've been running for 53 by our calculations. They're going to have to do 58. That full course caution, though, Jeremy, helped them big time.
Yes, it did. It helped everybody, really. They would be grateful to have the opportunity to save a little bit of fuel. Remember, 86 car, we saw that car come in to make its pit stop during that full course caution. That has gone back out again. That did so without losing a lap, and that could be crucial. I'm not sure, can you change drivers under caution? I should know the answer to that question.
Yeah, you're making me reach for my rule book and putting me on the spot there. Oh, and a spin. And that's the thing, you've got to take care of these Michelin tires and make sure that you've gotten them back up to temperature. A gaggle of cars down into the West Horseshoe. You can make time here, you can make positions, but you've got to be careful and not throw it all away. You're about to hand the car over to your teammate. Yeah. Make sure you've got a car to give it.
That was Lance Willsey who had that spin at the exit of the East Horseshoe. Rejoined. He's only lost maybe 7 or 8 seconds. But it'd be Nigel Greensall who will take over the wheel of that car. I think, actually, they haven't decided. I spoke to Nigel Greensall, the before the start of the race. They weren't sure whether Lance was going to double stint and then have Nigel finish, or Nigel was going to get in and do the middle stint and then have Lance Willsey get in the finish. I fancy it's probably going to be the latter. They will make a driver change now and again at their second stop in about an hour's time.
James Fritz there in the 75, a gaggle of cars, as we said, into the West Horseshoe, and that continued all the way into the bus stop. Alex Barron there in the 64 up top, and right behind him, I think it's the 25 of Aaron Pavolito, and cars beginning to head to pit lane. 4 cars breaking off and coming to the pits. 54.5 minutes in. Leaders stay out. Simone, Grist, McAleer. Pit stops underway. The battle continues for the lead. And remember, 3 minutes from the time you cross the pit in line until you cross the pit exit line has to be at least 3 minutes. Fuel doesn't flow particularly quickly in these cars.
Yeah, it's about 45 seconds, I think, to refuel the cars. So they've got plenty of time. They've got about 2 minutes, as you say, a minimum of 3 minutes to pit stop. It's generally going to be 2.5 this season. But as you say, with the extension of the pit lane speed limit this year all the way around turn 1, that's made the pit road delta, the time from when you come in to when you go out, considerably longer. So that is why the minimum pit stop time has been increased for this race, and that minimum pit stop time is from the moment they cross the line at the beginning of the pit lane to begin the speed limited run through the pits to the pit lane exit as well. So it's a long way. There's plenty of time for them to make this pit stop still, but they've got to think about what to do. Only 3 crewmen allowed to go over the wall, 2 of them involved in the wheel changing process and then the refueler as well.
And the leaders back across the line. They will not pit this lap. A problem for the 2. He's lost a tire. And I don't mean lost it as in the wheel came off. That's the tire carcass. So he had a deflation and the carcass has now come off. Now here's the problem. The leaders just went by the line. There's a large piece of debris on the racetrack. If they go full course caution to pick this up, and it's going to keep everybody out because they're going to close pit lane while they go full course caution to get it, and that could be a problem. And I believe they may have to do that. It'll be interesting to see if the officials will give the leaders a chance. If they don't pit this time, I would expect them to go full course caution, but I think they may give them the opportunity to get to pit in one more time before they throw that flag. We'll have to wait and see. There's the carcass, the 2 off to the side. They're the leaders out of turn 6. So they'll have to go through what we call NASCAR 1 and 2. You can see the deflations already happened for the 2. Brownson just carrying big pace. Perhaps he didn't realize what had happened. He's going quicker than you want to go with a flat tire, and it eventually just cuts the carcass off and it sheds it to the outside. You can see other cars beginning to pit because anybody with an opportunity is going to go, let's get it done now before they go caution. We need to get there before the flag flies. We're the leaders. They're in NASCAR 3 and 4. You would expect them to pit. Dive down, guys, and come to pit lane. This is when you need to get it done, and indeed the 23 is in. And oddly enough, no, he doesn't come.
And the caution is out.
Caution is out, so he stayed up on the racetrack.
That was curious.
It's curious. That may answer the question that you and I both should know.
Yeah, no, I think you can't make a pit stop under caution.
And I don't know if it came out at a point in time where Simone had to bail because the light came on before he got to the commit mark. And that's why he stayed up. But he lost the position. So behind the safety car for the second time, and this is going to be interesting. 58.5 minutes in. Closing in on the 2-hour mark. Yes, yellow saves fuel, and we had about an 8 to 10 minute full course caution a little bit earlier, so that probably gives them another 3 to 4 minutes worth of running time. Going to be contact here. Yep. And that's the 33 that goes around.
And that was at the restart. That was that previous caution. That was Lance Willsey turning that number 33 car around.
Just kind of gets pinched down to the inside.
Yeah, the number 19 car was actually a lap behind Lance Willsey, but Willsey was behind him on the road and trying to get past and wasn't quite close enough to make that happen.
That's the frustrating thing when you're trying to get past a lap car, somebody who's already down. And you know, it's so easy to talk about patience and so difficult to do sometimes. So the safety car out for the second time, 2 hours to go. Grist being shown in the lead, then Simone, then McAleer, Fluker, Barron, Pavolito, French, Waddell, Rieger, Willsey. That's the top 10. under this full course caution. And I'm wondering how many nervous hands are being wrung down in pit lane right now as far as being concerned about fuel. If you could go an hour, you got to figure you're going to get another 4 or 5 minutes out of it because of the full course caution that we've had so far, but there's not going to be a lot left in the tank.
No, there's not. You're right.
But what it should do is make, if you make it back around for the pit stop, what it should do is easily give you one more stop to the end.
Yeah, that's true. Certainly, the teams are hoping for a bit of a break there in terms of their fuel consumption. This will certainly give them that, and it'll be. I believe you can't when you go back to green, you can't make your pit stop then, so you have to wait until we go back to green and you can do one more lap, and then you can come on to.
Have to take the green lane on the racetrack.
Indeed, you do. So that's they're pretty tight on fuel now, but they should be just about okay because of that previous caution period. If not for that previous caution period, they could be really struggling.
I wonder too about.
There's only 2 laps they did under yellow last time around, so it wasn't very much.
Well, I wonder too about pickups in the fuel tank.
Well, and that is an issue here because on the banking.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Several of the teams were telling me before the start of the race that when they're going around the banking at speed with not a lot of fuel in the tank, the fuel light does come on. So you've got to figure out whether that's just because you're on the banking or whether you really are down on fuel. So the drivers have really got to pay attention. There's no live telemetry back to the pits to tell them how much fuel has been used or how much is on board. So it's up to the driver to relay the information back to the team.
We see cars on the apron in 1 and 2 instead of on the banking because it's flat.
Could well be.
Something to think about, and I'm sure that drivers talking to their engineers and crewmen.
Excuse me, Brian. The number 23 cars have gone back ahead of number 51. I wonder whether there was a bit of a miscommunication there, and we saw number 23 car was in the lead and headed toward pit lane. Then at the last minute, the full course caution flags came out, and by that stage, Garrett Grist had already gone past him. I think that race control, because they had to throw the caution, or they decided to throw that caution so late, I would hazard a guess to suggest they might have told the race leader, hey, that was our mistake there in calling the timing as we did. Please let him go back into the lead of the race. So the situation is back to how we were before the full course caution period came out.
Be interesting to see. We'll watch the cars here as they exit the infield and head up towards the banking and see if anybody takes that option to stay down on the flat. Everybody up on the banking right now. If anybody stumbles, I'm sure we'll see him down on the flat. Interesting to see drivers waiting, and we know that as soon as the pit lane opens, cars will be in, but one of those deals where it's going to be maddening waiting to get there. And there's the 23 Simone, that spectacular move around the high side of Garrett Grist into turn 1 to take the lead. But really the top 3 been pretty much stuck together since the drop of the green flag. And then we saw Fluker with a great run in the 47, Alex Barron having a good run, and good battles throughout. Be interesting to get an idea how long it's going to take to get that number 2 car sorted and out of the way so that we can get back to racing in an open pit lane. Looking down on the garage area, and we were talking about what a great group of fans that have turned out for the Roar. The weather absolutely perfect. You wouldn't have thought so yesterday late in the afternoon, right around 4:45, 5 o'clock, when the frontal system that has left us such beautiful weather today descended onto the Daytona Beach area, and it was raining sheets. Green flag waves. We're back racing. Everybody needs to take the green flag on the racetrack before you pit. 2 hours and closing down on 2 hours and 6 minutes on the fuel on board these cars right now. Fluker all over the back of Stephen McAleer, the black 47, really putting pressure on that multicolored blue number 10 out in front as Simoni leads the field back to green. And McAleer with a little bobble off the international horseshoe, and Fluker absolutely glued to the back wing of the 10.
There's another spinner at the exit of the horseshoe as well. It's kind of a 25. That's Aaron Povolado. We saw he was running in the 4th position right at the start of the race. He'd fallen back to 6th at the restart.
That'll be interesting to see. He's right there with Alex Barron and James French. Ben Waddell was in there as well. It'll be interesting to see if there was contact or he did it on his own. Expect to see all these lead cars in next time by, but they've got to get there. I would think they've got to be running really low. Closing in on 2 hours and 7 minutes in the books. Down to the bus stop one last time for Anthony Simoni, and I would fully expect to see him on pit lane.
Yeah, I would too. And what's interesting to me is the number 4 car that has made a pit stop. Neil Alberico has taken over this car from Leo Lamelas. They made that pit stop between the 2 caution periods. They were the only car on the lead lap to do so.
And that was a great call, because obviously Neil Alberico, very, very quick race car driver, and while these other cars are sitting stationary. And now this is interesting. The 51 stayed out.
Yeah, so did he.
Garrett Grist in the 51 has stayed on the racetrack, retakes the lead. Everybody else that was running right there with him is in. Fluker, McAleer, they've all come to pit lane. Simoni. And as we would expect, I find it interesting that they would go ahead and keep the 51 out. So we'll keep an eye on Garrett Grist as he's on the racetrack, and we'll watch the pit stops begin to take place for all the other competitors. There's the 23. Simoni out. Jason Bell will be getting in. Bell, a very quick race car driver, not really much time at all in the prototype category, but very good in GT cars in multiple series that he's run over the last several seasons. He was second in the GT4 category at the Michelin Sports Car Encore at Sebring with James Sofronis and Andy Lally. But this is going to be a new experience for him in this P3 machinery. Jason Bell.
Yes, indeed. And he's done well this weekend from Tampa, Florida. He's driving a lot of different cars lately, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
And he's going to be in the deep end here, but great challenge for him.
So we'll watch.
The top 4 of the lead lap cars did not come into the pits on that lap. That's Garrett Grist, who took over the lead from Simoni when he came in. Alex Barron in car number 64. Ben Waddell in car number 74. And Nico Riga in number 55. Of 47 Motorsports. So 2 of the Normas and 2 of the Ligiers have stayed out.
Now Grist is in the 51 that did the one more lap. The 10 of McAleer will be handing over to Kenton Cook. We talked about that driver pairing being exceptionally strong. A lot of experience in those 2 guys in the category. Grist will hand over to Rob Hodis. Alex Barron in just behind him. And 3 minutes sounds like a long time, but it's 3 minutes from pit in to pit out. You still need to execute a stop well. Yeah. You can't dally, but at the same point in time, take your time, make sure you get it done right. You see Grist out, pulls the seat insert out. Otis a little bit bigger, so he'll climb in. Grist will help him with that driver change and help him with his belts.
So it was Ben Waddell there in the number 74 car. He's the only one of the cars on the lead lap not yet to have made a pit stop. A lap down still is car number 4 in 10th position. but he has made his driver change already, so he's looking in pretty good shape here by the time we get back to green, I believe. But number 74, Ben Wardell, is one of the 47 motorsports team cars, and that was the team I think I can relate now that reckon they could run as much as an hour and 15 minutes before making the pit stops. However, number 55 car, one of the team cars, and November 47, they have already both now on pit lane making their first pit stop of the day.
IMSA Prototype Challenge Scouts of America 3 hour continues, an hour and 49 minutes to go, and that first round of pit stops being completed. Cars getting back on the racetrack minimum. Oh, and there's a spin for the 23 right out of the pit lane. Cold tires, and just coming off the horseshoe there, the international horseshoe, lights up the rear tires just a little bit, and Jason Bell with a spin. Just stay cool, stay calm, you got time, get this back under control, and indeed he does, and pulls away. But it's just kind of a reminder, hey, your Michelins are not ready to go just yet. You've got to get them up to temperature, and that's what's so difficult. No tire warmers, can't preheat the tires, get them up to pressure and temperature. And so you've got to go do it on the racetrack. Take a look here. Bell, little high there, and just gets out there, and perhaps the paint. You saw that white stripe, and that was close. Anytime you get on a painted surface, on a tire that doesn't have good grip in it yet, it's a recipe for disaster. That paint fills in all the aggregate and makes it nice and slick. And you saw just about the time that left rear got to the paint, that's when the car came around. Lesson learned. Check that box off.
Who was that right behind? I didn't see who that was right behind.
I didn't either, but it was close.
I'm thinking it was most likely the number 10 car.
Waddell still out in front, and then we'll have to let timing and scoring cycle through, as looking down on pit lane, it is empty, so everybody has done their stop and headed back to the racetrack. Things will get sorted out and settled. There's Jason Bell in the 23. It was the 75 that was just behind him. And that was a very near miss, and a good job by Cameron Castles, who had taken over from James French in the 75, to see that kind of transpiring in front and make sure that contact didn't happen. Castles spending time in a P2 car here at the Roar, as well as the Prototype Challenge machinery. Another one of these really good gentleman racers who is fanatical about his racing, loves to do it a lot of time in GT based machinery, but new to the prototype ranks.
So the last driver to make his pit stop, car number 74, Ben Wardell, brings his car onto pit lane for service. He's gone a lot longer than anybody else. He's done 2 or even 3 laps more than many of his rivals here, to see whether that turns out to be a benefit in the long run. And meanwhile, Neil Albarico now, he's just taken over 2nd place in car number 4 for IMSA Motorsports, and he's got a pretty healthy lead over everybody else.
That was interesting. Whoa, and there's a spinner. It's the 51, and that was a really near miss.
It's Rob Hodis. So both of the cars that were running 1-2 before the pit stops, they both had a spin afterwards.
That was dramatic. That was trying to put the power down coming off of turn 6 in the middle of traffic, and get an idea here. Kind of gets on a bump, gets on the throttle coming off the corner, and right out here at the exit, the rear end breaks loose, and that was close, especially on the inside. Once again, without traction control, you have to be patient. You've got to feel the back end of that car, and if it starts to step out at all, especially at a place like turn 6, which leads you on to effectively a massively long straightaway, you don't want any wheel spin there anyway, because that's going to just inhibit your acceleration down that long straightaway to the bus stop. You've got to sense that, and if you don't, especially when the tires are cold like that, when they lose traction, they lose it very quickly. And if you're not ready for it, around she goes. So Hodis bit a little bit there by the cold Michelins coming off of 6. Gets it back underway. And hopefully he hasn't flat spotted a tire. Did see a little smoke off the back of the 51 yet again. And remember Garrett Grist, we saw it a lot. And I will tell you this, where I just saw it, I don't think that's brake lockup. I think there must be some fluid leak in the engine compartment on the 51. We see it more in left-hand corners. It's gotten less, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. There's only one or two reasons why things stop smoking, and the first reason is it's out of things to burn anymore. So if it's starting to run low on fluid, that could be an issue if it had been some type of an oil leak.
Yeah, neither of them particularly good reasons, are they?
Yeah.
So still waiting for car number 4 to take over the leader. Number 74 car still showing as the race leader because he is still in the pits. Then number 4 car, which is well clear of number 10 of Stephen McAleer, who stayed aboard the number 10 car, so he'll be doing a double stint before handing over to Kenton Cook for the final third of the race. Austin McCusker in car number 47 is now up into, well, what will be third position.
74 of Wyatt Schwab now back underway. When I watched that pit stop take place between Ben Waddell and Wyatt Schwab, we talked about size differential in the beginning, but when the two drivers were standing there on pit lane side by side, you could get a really good idea of how different they are size-wise. As I said earlier, there is an honest 100-pound weight difference between those two drivers, and you could see it in the size. I think Ben's about 6'1" and 235, and as you said, Wyatt looks like a jockey. So things settling down a little bit. Neil Alberico out in front. We talked about his pit stop, really one of the first ones that we saw. And the question there is, Jeremy, was it early, too early? Is he going to have a fuel concern at the end of the race? We'll have to keep an eye on it. I was amazed at how far the cars could go, even with the caution laps that they had. That was still a good ways farther than I thought it might have been able to do. And the 51, especially staying out just that one more lap, and even the 74 was our last car to pit. As you look down at the 60 and the 74.
The 10 car, Stephen McAleer, is making his way onto pit lane again. Is that a penalty? Well, I presume it is.
May well be, because he's up in the fast lane.
I think it is a drive-through penalty.
That'll be interesting. I don't know if that was a time.
Nothing on the screen, is there? Yeah, he's definitely making a drive-through.
I wonder if that was a pit stop time infraction. Ooh, that was close. That was almost a big error. It pit out by the car just in front of the 10. Almost went straight onto the racetrack instead of staying in pit lane. And that could have been dangerous. See McAleer behind the 7. It was the 7 being shown with Blake Mount still in the car that almost pulled straight onto the racetrack instead of going through the pit lane, which dumps you out on the short straightaway down to the International Horseshoe. That was close. There's the 10. It's still showing McAleer in the car, and my understanding was it was going to be McAleer, then Cook, and then McAleer in at the end. So I don't know. Service the car from behind the wall is the penalty call for the number 10. Not exactly sure what that service was. Well, take a look at this on the 7. He needs to be left into the pit lane, yes, and you can see he decides and makes the decision very late, but you get an idea of the closing speed of the car on the racing surface. If he had stayed up on the racetrack, that would have been a big problem for Nico Ronde in the 11.
That's a good call to get back across. So they got the 47 car in second position. That's Austin McCusker. He's a full minute, 61 seconds behind Neil Alberico, who leads. And Neil Alberico has just set that car's best lap of the race so far in car number 4. And the reason he's got such a huge lead is because he made that pit stop before this latest caution period. Everybody else has had to make their pit stop after the caution period. So he was able to make up the ground that he lost on the road during the caution and pull up to the back of the pack, and then when everybody else has come onto pit lane, they've fallen a lot farther behind. So that is the reason that Neil Alberico has such a commanding lead at this stage.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how this all settles down after the last round of pit stops. Remember, it is endurance racing, and there goes Alberico. in that red, black, and white number 4 from IMSA Motorsports. They had a problem with the engine, did not qualify yesterday. So got that engine in and gone from the back of the pack where they started to the front. But it'll be interesting to see how it all settles out as we talked about the different driver ratings, the bronze and the silver drivers, and some of these drivers, very, very good driver coaches, experienced guys. Scott Maxwell, one of those guys. And you think about all the experience that Scott had. I saw him in the paddock a little earlier today. He goes, it's been about 10 years since I drove a prototype, but hey, I'm going to have fun when we go do it. But it's going to transition back through, and every one of these teams is going to have it lined up to where they're going to put what they believe is their fastest driver in at that final pit stop, and then it's going to be a shootout to the end. Neil Alberico out in front in the Ligier, the number 4 from IMSA, a very talented race car driver, and everything that he's driven up through the Formula Car ranks. Think about his time in USF 2000, Pro Mazda, last 3 seasons in Indy Lights, and a very short season in 2018. Only ran a couple of lights races at St. Petersburg, but still always performing well. And he may be one of those drivers who turns to sports car racing, because he's certainly showing that he can get the job done. Yeah, that's certainly the plan for Neil. He's been hanging around. He was at the Michelin Encore. Didn't get a chance to drive in the race, but he actually did, but the car was already broken at that stage. So he didn't get a chance to really show what he could do. See a little bit of a breeze on with the flags as you watch these cars back through the West Horseshoe. 75 there. Cameron Castles with a great run. Watch that car move up a little bit earlier and have some good battles with his co-driver James French behind the wheel. And Cameron Castles, one of these guys, always has a smile on his face, and it doesn't matter whether he's driving a GT-based car or he's learning to ply his trade a little bit now in the prototypes. Ran what is now the Michelin Pilot Series over the last several years. He won the LMP3 Masters Championship with a win at Road Atlanta last year. That was really his first foray into prototype racing was last year, and just loves this car. Running with James French this year. And that's the plan. I talked to French a little earlier. He said, I hope I'm in the car all year long. That would be something that I want to do. And we talked about his ability behind the wheel as a prototype challenge champion in the WeatherTech Series in 2017. Wins at Daytona, Sebring, and I believe at Watkins Glen that year. And just a stunning year that he had in that championship run in 2017. Kyle Masson, part of that organization when they had such great success with Performance Tech.
And, Neil Alberico, they're just putting a lap on number 64. Naveen Rao has taken over the wheel of that car, and also Scott Maxwell, who's taken over number 60 car from Bruce Hamilton.
And looking at the bottom of timing and scoring right now, there are messages that I'm sure the 10 team doesn't want to see. Penalty, pit lane speed violation. So I'm wondering if when that penalty was served, there was a speed violation for that. The 74 car also being shown with a penalty, fueling from the improper pit box or fuel rig, and that's going to be a drive-through penalty. And I noticed that when the 74 car came in, they stopped what appeared to be long, and then they pushed the car back. I wonder if if Ben Waddell actually stopped where he was supposed to, and then the crew pulled him back to the adjacent fuel rig for some reason. Maybe theirs wasn't working the way that they wanted to, so they used the other rig. But at any rate, there will be a drive-through penalty for fueling from the improper fuel rig. Alberico, McCusker, Kenton Cook in the 10, but that's going to change a little bit when he serves that drive-through penalty, because I think he's only served the one at this point in time. And Nigel Greensall being shown in 5th.
Kent Cook is at the wheel of car number 10.
Yep.
Okay, fine. So
that's now changed.
And Kent Cook has set just set the fastest lap of the race at a 1:44.314. He's running in the 3rd position. He's about 19 seconds behind Austin McCusker in car number 47. He actually made up nearly 2 seconds on him on that lap, actually a little bit over 2 seconds on him on that last lap. Neil Alberico still leads by 61.1 seconds. It was last time around. He was a 1/10 of a second quicker than Austin McCusker. Kent Cook was 2 seconds quicker than that, but is still another 20 seconds behind in the 3rd position.
As Alberico streaks through the West Horseshoe, I think Rob Morgan would work in one of these cars really well. He's got prototype experience, and have to get Rob Morgan back in prototype racing in a P3 car. And I say that because he just sent me a text and said, that looks like fun. And there's the 74 serving the penalty. It said drive-through. It didn't say stop and go on the timing monitor, so that cost extra time, as you saw Wyatt Schwab pull into the box and stop, and then a little stall on the way out.
Inexperience there, I fancy.
More frustration with the penalty in the first place. And it's easy to do, but it's one of those deals where that is one of those emotions that you have to control behind the wheel so that you don't make mistakes. There's already been a problem. You don't want to compound it.
That's exactly right. He comes across the line to complete lap 44 as our race leader, coming for Neil Alberico, just about to put a lap. Is he down to the inside yet? On the number 55 of Timo Riga, who's taken over from his brother Timo, the older brother, 22 years of age, from Houston, Texas, completing just 4 laps prior to the race this weekend. Each of the brothers had a brief test up at New Jersey Motorsports Park, where 47 Motorsports is based earlier, well, a few weeks ago, but it was 40 degrees outside, and we only got about half an hour of running each.
You're not going to learn a lot, are you?
Very little track time, so Timo's in at the deep end right here.
And the 55 car, that beautiful deep red kind of metallic color, it looks a lot like the color that you saw on the Mazda DPI prototype last year, and in fact, it actually says Mazda on the side of it. It is not a Mazda powered car. It is because of the scholarship win by Nico Rieger.
Yep. The Mazda Road to 24 scholarship for winning last year's Battery Tender MX5 Club Global Challenge Series. The new generation Mazda MX5s.
Penalty message still on the bottom of the timing screen for the 10, and I haven't seen him in yet, but as I look out the window,
well, is that the penalty from before?
That's the pit lane speed violation penalty. I believe what happened was they came in and served the first penalty for servicing the car from behind the wall, and there must have been a pit lane speed violation while serving that penalty. So now Kenton Cook has to serve that. Nothing like serving a penalty that you didn't do.
Yeah, really irritating there.
Well, and you don't know. You know, it's one of those deals where, well, that would have been his penalty, because the penalty was for service. So Kenton would have served it. So it would have been his speeding violation. I had to kind of backtrack, which for me at my age is hard to do at times.
So that'll elevate number 75 of Cameron Castles up into 3rd place. Excellent by Cameron. He's really made such grounds with his driving over the last 12 months. He won the Masters category last season, and is started off this season running now in the 3rd position now in car number 75. Also now up into 4th will be Nigel Greensall, who's taken over from Lance Wilsey in car number 33. Now this is a car that's leading the all-bronze driver pairings for the more experienced drivers in the field. The 54-year-old Englishman Nigel Greensall, a massive amount of experience with all sorts of different cars, and loving the opportunity to drive this LMP3 car here at Daytona International Racing. He has done the 24-hour race here before, back in
a while ago, right?
A while ago, yeah, nearly 20 years ago. He has come back regularly for the HSR Daytona long distance races.
He drives everything. You look at the cars that he drives regularly, whether it's vintage Formula One cars or sedans, GT-based machinery. And I'm imagining he has plenty of fun doing it. When you run down the list of cars that he's run.
Smile on his face.
And that's exactly what you would see if you could see inside Cameron Kessel's helmet right there in the 75 right now. Another one of these guys who is always smiling. And I will tell you, he is a guy that is so incredibly serious about his racing. He's spent a lot of time with his coaches and working on being better. He's his own worst enemy when it comes to the feedback. He punishes himself, I think, more than his driver coaches or his crew would ever do. He's really hard on himself because he wants to be better and he wants to be the best that he can be, and he's having a great drive. I think he's really found a home in these prototypes. He loves them. There's Cook now being shown all the way back in 9th, but one more time, there is time to move forward. An hour and a half to go. There's going to be another round of pit stops. The problem is strategy for the 4 team was exemplary. And right now, Alberico will have to see if McCusker is holding on to the back of that lap or is indeed 1 lap down.
No, there's 5 cars on the lead lap at the moment. The last one being car number 70, Jonathan George. He's in danger of going a lap down. He'll be next in the sights of Neil Alberico.
There's the 10 in Cook, putting in good lap times as you would expect, but just a bit frustrating right now. Just under an hour and a half to go from Daytona International Speedway. Scouts of America 3 hour for the IMSA Prototype Challenge class. Neil Alberico with some good pit strategy between 2 full course cautions has managed to take his number 4 Ligier to the front.
Just going into turn 1 now. The next car ahead of him on the road, I believe, is car number 70, and that is Jonathan George in the second of the all-bronze driver lineup. So number 33 car leads that subcategory, if you like, with Lance Willsey and Nigel Greensall is driving that car right now. Joel Janko and Jonathan George, who's taken over the wheel now with number 70 car. He's only 3 seconds behind Nigel Greensall, and closing last time by the better part of a second. So Jonathan George, who's better known as a driver coach, hasn't done much racing at all over the last 10 years really, but he's been a very accomplished driver coach over the years, works with a lot of different drivers, and he is showing that he's no mean pilot himself. He did a fair bit of skip barber racing several years ago, was very, very quick, but realized that he didn't have the money to go racing himself, so concentrated on the driver coaching.
And he is an exemplary driver coach, and he is used by guys who run in classes as high as IndyCar and guys that are club racers. He's very meticulous, very detail-oriented guy, and he is sought after to help improve lap times for, as I said, a myriad of pilots through all different types of classes. Right now, there's the 47 of McCusker. Alberico still out in front. It's going to be interesting after this next round of pit stops to see how it all settles out, because it's going to be a shootout at the end. McCusker in one of the 5 Norma chassis in the field. And we've talked about that car seems to have, the chassis seems to have, not the 47 in particular. They seem to have really good straight line speed, and they can load them up with some downforce and try to help take care of those Michelin tires through the corners and give themselves perhaps a little better braking capability, a little better cornering because of the added downforce, and still maintain a mile an hour or 2 in a straight line. The 47 is one of the cars that elected not to qualify yesterday in the rain, so they started well back, and McCusker has moved it up to second place.
He had a problem actually in qualifying. But yeah, you're right, they didn't qualify, certainly.
2 wins, 2 second-place finishes in Prototype Challenge in 2018 for Austin McCusker, 2nd in the championship. So certainly knows how to get the job done. And so does this man. Neil Alberico may forget all about being able to see the tires and wheels and sitting in a small little monocoque of a Formula car. I think he may be really digging on this Prototype Challenge category as he leads here at Daytona after some great pit stop strategy. And it was really a call that I thought was a very sound one, because it was closing in on the window and with a call of debris on the racetrack and then the problems that we saw. It was a great job to get the number 4 in, get that pit stop done, and get Alberico out and on the racetrack. Leo Lamelas had started in the 4. It'll be interesting to see as well. Will they put Leo back in for the final stint, or are they going to leave Neil in for a double?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting call for that team. Young Brazilian, just 21 years of age. Neil Alberico, who's his 26th birthday at the end of last month, from California, originally from Los Gatos in the Bay Area, live now down in San Clemente, Southern California. So just same town as Juan Di Filippi was originally from, although Juan has now moved over to the East Coast.
This is the 47 coming up on Baker there in the 19. That's not for position. Baker down in the order a bit. You can kind of get an idea, even though with the black body work on the Norma, it's kind of hard to see the lines, but you can see the subtle nuances, the difference between the Norma, the 47, and the 19, which is a Ligier chassis. You can see little differences in the nose. Just a little bit on the back end of the car as well. When you put them side by side and can walk around them, you can see those subtleties, and it's like any engineer and any race car designer does. They look at a project and they go, what do we want to really maximize? You know, what do we want the best out of this car? I think a lot of times you have to look at it and say, what's the purpose of the car? And a P3 car, obviously, an LMP3 based machine, is designed to be a stepping stone series, a training series. So you want a car that maybe is a little more rounded in its performance curve, that's not going to punish you too much if you step on either side of the line, a little better rounded balance. I don't want to say easy to drive, because they are 180-mile-an-hour cars, but something that's just a little bit more forgiving because of the driver that you know you're going to place in it.
That's right. There's a big variety of drivers in terms of their experience, certainly their experience. And a lot of these guys don't have a lot of time in this sort of car, and some of them do. So there's certainly some big variations in speed out there. There's certainly some great racing going on, and it was a great strategic call by IMSA Motorsports to bring that number 4 car in during what turned out to be a break between 2 caution periods. And they're taking full advantage, and Neil Alberico is stretched lead just a little bit. It's 63 seconds this lap. It was gone up by about 2 seconds, but only over the last 9 laps. So it's really changed hardly at all between Neil Alberico and Austin McCusker. Cameron Castle's a long way back in 3rd position. Car number 10 that we saw charging along, Kenton Cook, had to make that extra drive-through penalty pit stop. It dropped him down into the 7th position. No, it didn't. It dropped him down to 9th position. He's already up into 6th, but he is currently a lap down to the overall leader. And there's the battle also now in the 4th position is Jonathan George, who's managed to find his way past Nigel Greensall. So Cameron Castles is just ahead of Canada Center. Those cars headed now towards the East Horseshoe. The battle for 3rd, 4th, and close behind him also is 5th position, 75, 70, and 33.
Cameron Castles is going to have his hands full of Jonathan George here shortly. Greensall, as you said, has already fallen victim to George, and there's a look at Neil Alberico.
Yeah, and Neil has just done a 1:45.377 last time around. That's his best lap of the race. And over the last 10 laps, through 6 of them, Alberico set his best lap in that car. A 46.1, he managed on lap 41. Here we are on lap 51. He's just turned a 1:45.3. So he's finding pace as he gets more experience in the car. Had very little running yesterday, did Neil, because they had an engine problem in the second practice session. Didn't get an opportunity to qualify that car as a result of that. So Neil Alberico, he's doing all his learning right now on the racetrack, and he's leading this motor race and doing just an excellent job. The gap from first to second, again, 63 seconds as they complete lap 51. With an hour and just under an hour and 20 minutes remaining, so just over halfway through this 3-hour race.
And Jonathan George has gotten past Cameron Castles, and now the 33 of Nigel Greensall has Castles in his sight. Greensall in the red, white, and blue, number 33. Castles just in front in the blue and white 75, and we'll see if Nigel, a little twitch, and then the twitch was because
that's the leaders.
The 75 goes around.
The leaders are who's spun it.
Cameron Castles.
Cameron Castles spun okay. Well, and Kenton Cook is trying to get his lap back, and I think has done. He's just got his lap back, I believe, from Neil Alberico. That was all very tight down there in turn 1.
Didn't see exactly what happened, but Castles ends up getting the worst of it, sits backwards, and now a problem for the 86. That's down in turn 6, I believe.
Is that turn 1 as well?
No, that's turn 1. Yeah, that's turn 1 as well. He may have been involved. And that car has damage. You'll see that the left front is up in the air. That tells me there's damage on the right rear. Let's take a look. So Castle's out there on his own.
Left his braking too late.
33 slides by.
Just about gets through on the inside. No, that flash of cars going through on the left of the screen, that was Neil Alberico.
And there's the 86 spinning, but something looked askew when he pulls back out. It's like the left front didn't seem to be turning. It's almost like there was a suspension problem on the right rear, and the car was sitting down on the right rear. Castles back underway. There's the 86. Yeah, the right rear is down. So not a suspension issue, but a tire issue. And that is a huge problem. 3.5 miles around this racetrack, and you've got to go slow. Michelin builds an awesome tire. We saw a tire problem earlier on one of the other cars. They don't tend to come apart like a saw blade, but you can't carry big speed. You've got to limp the car back around. And the problem is that happened in turn 1. Perhaps the slide, the spin, just wore through the rubber on that Michelin tire and caused it to go down. But it's going to be a long, painful trip back around for Dave House in the 86.
It is. And so the man on the move right now is Kenton Cook. He's got his lap back from Neil Alberico, so back onto the lead lap. He's also passed a couple of cars on this last lap. He's absolutely flying, is Kenton Cook.
I was going to say.
And I think by now he's probably got past Nigel Greensall as well. So he'll be setting his sights again on 3rd place not too long from now.
Good lap time. Scott Maxwell also turning good lap times as well. He was down in the 45s last time by. That was a good ½ second faster than Kenton Cook. So Maxwell may not have been in a prototype in 10 years, like he told me earlier today, but certainly has good pace. And here's the 86 trying to get back around. Like I said, you can't carry too much speed. You're sitting down on that right rear anyway because of the deflated tire. That's going to create some dragging issues, and you don't want to wear out components. You certainly don't want the tire to come apart and turn basically into a bandsaw and cut bodywork and perhaps suspension components with it if it comes undone. There's the 4. Alberico going around the 33 of Greensall, so putting him another lap down. Very, very impressed with Neil Alberico in this prototype challenge event today. This entire team, good pit strategy, good lap times by both drivers in the 4.
Yeah, particularly seeing how few laps he's had in this car.
Well, it's one of those things where every lap he's learning, I would think.
He is.
Alberico, then McCusker, Jonathan George, Kenton Cook, and Nigel Greensall. That is the top 5 right now from Daytona International Speedway. And Alberico just really kind of putting on a clinic. Smooth sailing for him, having to work through traffic a little bit from time to time.
House has got that car back to the pits, car number 86.
Great job.
Yeah.
Great job. And frustrating, and I'm sure it felt just dreadfully slow for him, but he's gotten it back. The tires stayed together. I don't see any damage to the bodywork on the car. And while it's not good news that he had the problem, the good news is the car is back in one piece.
Yeah. Yeah, hats off for him for doing that. That's the patience and experience there from Dave House, the oldest driver in the race, a remarkable 75 years young.
It looks like Paul LaHaye is standing there with his seat insert. He's going to get back in. And as we said, they were going to see if they had a good time in this car and perhaps come back and do more and invest a little more in the series. It'd be great to see them back. As Alberico down into turn 1. Once again, 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 45 seconds to go here, round 1 of the 2019 season for IMSA Prototype Challenge, the 50th anniversary season for IMSA, and it couldn't start off in any better fashion. The weather is absolutely perfect. The racing has been intense from the drop of the green. That first stint, the first stint drivers that we watched had some great battles side by side, maybe even a little rubbing down the front straightaway through the tri-oval at 180 miles an hour by a couple of the competitors. Good stuff, good professional driving, and a joy to see this series beginning to grow even more. Expect more cars in the future. There are more cars that are out there.
There are, yeah. Max Crawford from Ligier was telling me he sold 5 cars fairly recently, and none of those cars are actually here yet this weekend, so we're expected to see those at the next round. Next round will be at Sebring.
A couple of other cars that were run last year are for sale as well. And just waiting for another team or two to jump into the fray and bring some drivers with them. Great formula, the Prototype Challenge category. Silver and bronze drivers only at this point in time. Some young guns looking to establish themselves and begin to build a career in sports car racing, and some more experienced businessmen type drivers who love the thrill of driving in prototype type machinery. And that's exactly what the series was designed for. 70 of Jonathan George in.
Big lockup there from Neil Alberico as a race leader, and not far behind him on the road there is the battle for 5th position with number 33 Nigel Greensall coming under increasing pressure now from the veteran Scott Maxwell. Yet another Canadian. They love to come down into Florida in the winter time, don't they, for a bit of warmer weather. But Scott Maxwell, he's sharing that number 60 Volvo Racing machine with Bruce Hamilton and Tony Kazimierz, who will take the final stint in probably about less than 15 minutes time.
Well, and Scott, a funny guy, massively experienced, several championships under his belt, and probably countless race wins. I can only imagine what his trophy room looks like at home, but he's busy this weekend running in the Michelin Pilot Series as well here in the Prototype Challenge Series. And he was scurrying around today. He said, I don't even know where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be there. But you know what? I only have 4 laps in the car so far, but hopefully I'll get a lot more than that in my stint. And as I said, he was talking about it had been a while since he had driven a prototype, but it seems to be coming back to him pretty quickly. You look at his lap times, they're all down in the 45, the 1 minute 45 second range, which is exactly what Alberico and Cusker are running. Kenton Cook quicker than that, the fastest car on the racetrack right now at a 44.3 the last time by.
He must have got a spin on that for Jason Bell, perhaps. He's lost a lot of ground. He was running in the 12th position, just ahead. He's been closed upon by Nico Ronde in car number 11. Well, Nico Ronde has gone past and now actually closed up on Rob Hoders in car number 51 as well.
Alberico beginning to close down on Jonathan George in front. I tell you, the 4 looks a little like the grip has gone away. The balance has gone away for Alberico a little bit. The car seems to move a lot, a bit twitchy in the braking zones.
Yeah, well, he's certainly getting now towards the time for his that car's second pit stop. He was the first car, of course, to come onto pit lane, and that was maybe 10 minutes before the rest of the field.
He's got to go another 10 minutes, though, if he wants to make it to the checkered flag with just one more stop. And that's what we had talked about earlier on, was how far really can you go on full green flag runs. He has had some yellow flag laps because, remember, they pitted between the 2 full course cautions. So he'll get a little bit of fuel savings benefit because of that. But you want to get inside that 1 hour mark, I would think, before you make that final pit stop. Most of the numbers that we had heard on fuel mileage was somewhere between 55 minutes and an hour, with one outlier out there that said they could go almost an hour and 15 minutes. But on average, it was the 57, 58-minute range. You've got a mandatory 3-minute stop here at Daytona. It'll be 2.5 minutes for the rest of the season, but due to the length of the pit lane here and the length of pit out once you leave the pit lane, it's a 3-minute stop. So you would think that with an hour to go, you could hit pit lane and be okay.
So there's a change of position there for 5th position, right behind Neil Alberico, who's heading now towards the East Horseshoe. 2 cars behind him is Scott Maxwell and Nigel Greensall. That position has just changed. So in 4th position, the last car on the lead lap is car number 7, Jonathan George. He leads the all bronze category in this race. Right behind him then is another veteran driver, Scott Maxwell, and Nigel Greensall in car number 33 back into 6th place. And a bit of a gap back to the older of the 2 Rieger brothers, Timo, in car number 55 in 7th.
Be interesting to see if Jonathan can keep that position. He was right there lap time wise within a 10th of where Alberico was. So Alberico's closing, but not by very much right now. And George would love to be able to stay on the lead lap, although he's got to know that the 4 is going to be pitting pretty soon. And if you're the crew of Neil Alberico, you need to be telling him as well, look, you're going to be pitting in a couple of laps. Don't take any risks in order to get one more car. Yeah, you'd love to do it, but just be smart about how it happens. It's not the run to the checkered flag just yet. Let's get in position. And as we said, it'll be interesting to see, will Alberico stay in the car? Will they hand it back over to Leo Lamelas for the final stint? Been told that in the 10, Stephen McAleer will take that car back over, and will Fluker get back in the 47?
Good question. Good question. He certainly had a very good opening stint, but Austin McCusker, he's just turned out the best lap of the race in that particular car, car number 47, in 2nd place. The gap still over a minute, though, from himself to the race leader, Neil Alberico, and a new fastest lap of the race last time around by Kenton Cook in car number 10, chasing along there in 3rd position. He's another half a minute behind Austin McCusker in that 3rd position as Kenton Cook. And he's edged out now to 10 seconds ahead of Jonathan George, who's the last car on the lead lap, and only just directly ahead of Neil Alberico on the race track. There they are, heading up onto the banking in turn 6.
Neil Alberico leads in the number 4 Ligier, the black, red, and white number 4. Just in front of him is the number 70 Ligier, Jonathan George. George in 4th. So Alberico trying to put only 3 cars on the lead lap with an hour and 5 minutes to go. And like I said, as the crew for Alberico, you've got to be keeping him in touch with where you are. And for Jonathan George, remember what he does the vast majority of the time for a living. He is a driver coach. He knows keenly where he fits in, and he knows that the 4 is going to be coming into the pits sometime soon as well. So you want to hold on to what you can, but at the same point in time, you have to be intelligent about how hard you're going to push. George still there, but in the braking zone. Alberico just a little bit deeper, has the preferred inside line, got the position done back on the banking, and managed to hold on to it through 1 and 2.
So that's now just 4 cars on the 3 cars, excuse me, on the lead lap, and now into the pits to begin the second round of pit stops with 64 minutes remaining. A little bit early is Scott Maxwell in car number 60.
That's going to be interesting. They're going to have to go an hour and 2 minutes on fuel. We've heard once again 57, 58 minutes, maybe an hour. Not much more than that, but that's what they're going to have to do to get to the checkered flag in that car. Tony Kazmets will be told those things that you never want to hear as a driver. Go as fast as you can and save as much fuel as possible, which is hard to do here at Daytona. Any racetrack where a vast majority of your lap is full throttle, you're burning fuel. And it, you know, other racetracks you can coast into braking zones a little bit more. You think about Road America, you can come off the throttle and to a place like turn 5 a little bit more and let the downhill take advantage a little bit and kind of coast to a braking zone. But here at Daytona, from the time you leave turn 6 until the bus stop and the exit of the bus stop all the way back around to turn 1 is full throttle, and then all that full throttle acceleration through the infield. You're burning some fuel. The 51 now in. Hodis in the 51. Remember the strong run that we saw from this car earlier in the hands of Garrett Grist, who qualified on the pole, cleared by 2 seconds. And Grist will be getting back in as the door comes open. Hodis is climbing out. And Grist certainly isn't going to be a guy that plays forward in the NBA or also linebacker in the NFL.
No, he's another jockey size, isn't he? Absolutely right.
Wonder still, though, about the smoke that I've seen for the last almost 2 hours out of the left rear of that 51.
News? Alberico now lapping nice and consistently when he has a clear track ahead. Been 45.4 last time around for our race leader. That's only 1/10 of a second away from his fastest lap in that car, which was set 10 laps ago. 61 laps completed, an hour and 2 minutes remaining.
So the 51 will need to run right at an hour. They came in right about the hour and 3 minute mark, 3 minute mandatory pit stop. That means they'll to run right around an hour on the racetrack. We're getting to the point where I can understand some damage to the back. Was that the 23? A little body work hanging off. There's the 4. Yeah, we're getting to the point now, Jeremy, where I would expect to start seeing a few more stops. There's the 23, and I think the right rear, what we sometimes call the cheese wedge, the little bit of the under tray there on the right rear looks to be damaged. Jason Bell had that spin earlier when he left pit lane on his out lap, and I don't think it would have happened there.
And a new best lap for our race leader Neil Alberico, 1:45.266 that time around. The gap back to second place, 61.6 seconds. The gap from second to third, just under half a minute now for the first time in a long, long time. It's Kenton Cook in car number 10.
It's going to get tight here at the end. It's going to get good. 3 cars on the lead lap right now, and then Nigel Greensall in the 33 in 4th, the first of the lap down cars. Now Alberico out of turn 6 and up onto the banking one more time. Right at 1 hour to go. So at this point in time, based upon what we were told with those 57, 58-minute run times, you should be able to come to pit lane, and indeed starting to see cars do just that. Will the 4 pit this time?
Including our second place car, number 47, Austin McCusker, brings that car in. Right behind him is
like
Nico
the 11
Rondo as well, isn't it?
I believe it is. The 11 is in. There's the 4, Neil Alberico. What will he do? McCusker in second place. Service already being done.
New fastest lap there for Kenton Cook in car number 10, 144.089, and that is a new lap record. He finally just got below the mark set last year by Daniel Morad, 144.114 it was, 123 miles an hour 1 year ago. That was just been eclipsed by Kenton Cook. Here is our race leader, Neil Alberico, onto pit lane.
And we're going to find out what's going to happen as far as driver changes go. It looks to me like McCusker stayed in the 47. What will we see in the 4? Crew is on the wall. Michelin tires coming out. I don't see a driver standing on the wall or beginning to move to the car.
And that's a smart move. Leo Linares did a really nice opening stint in that car, but Neil Alberico, he's in the groove, he's driving well, he's a very experienced driver. He certainly hasn't done a race anything like this length before, but he's done an absolutely superb job. He just set on his previous lap, he set his best lap of the race so far, so he's absolutely in the groove with Neil Alberico. No reason to change things up right now.
And what about the 10? When will we see them on pit lane? And with Kenton Cook just setting a new lap record, what do you do as far as the pilot in the 10? Do you put Stephen McAleer back in, who started the race, who's going to be one of your regular season drivers, or do you leave Kenton Cook in?
Yeah. Good question.
Glad I don't have to make those decisions. I just get to ask the question, right? I don't have to decide. And there's the 10. We'll have to see if Kenton Cook pits next time by. He's going through turn 1 this time. Alberico going to stay in the 4. And this Robillard racing team with the 10 has to be pleased with what they've done as far as providing a really good car. Stephen McAleer was exceptional in the rain yesterday. Felt like he had a lap for the pole, but spun in the rain on that last lap, one that the predictive told him would have put him on the pole, but as Jeremy, you said earlier, woulda, shoulda, coulda, right? Yep. But still started on the front row. They've run up front all day long. Both McAleer and Cook have been impressive behind the wheel of it, and right now in a good position as time closes down. 57 minutes to go. I would expect to see the 10 in soon. They should be well within inside the window for fuel.
Yep.
And if Kenton Cook can continue to lay down impressive lap times, why would he not? If he can continue to lay down those impressive lap times, it'll just build the gap bigger for Stephen McAleer if he takes over the 10.
It's certainly very, very impressive to see such good lap times being turned at this stage in the race. You know, right at the end of that stint for Neil Alberico, literally his last lap before he came into pit lane, he turned his best lap. That is remarkable consistency from these Michelin tires.
Well, I wonder too, you know, and obviously the Michelin tires, we talked about when they begin to fall off, it's very gradual. The balance stays the same. The car is good. The car is getting lighter and lighter. And one of the things Jim Griffith from Polestar told me earlier is you want to make sure that when the tires begin to go away, it matches the reduced weight of the fuel load going away, so that in the latter half you've got a really well-balanced car. And I think we've seen both the tire manufacturer be able to do that in Michelin and the teams be able to come up with a setup on the car that is a consistent setup and one that actually may improve towards the latter stages, because we've seen these fast laps by several drivers in the second half of the stint. Yeah, we have.
So you know, certainly there's no real benefit, I think, in necessarily in staying out. You want to, you know, a lighter fuel load. So it really doesn't make any difference when you make your pit stop, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because the tires seem to be as good at the end of the stint as they are at the beginning.
Yeah, there's no hurry to get in because you need new skins.
No, and Kenton Cook has just taken over, by the way, the lead of the race by staying out to complete his 64th lap. 1:45.1 was his last lap around. That was just a tenth of a second quicker than the best lap turn by Neil Alberico before he made his pit stop.
So it'll be interesting to see. Things will get shaken up here on this pit stop for the 10. Once again, he'll spend 3 minutes on pit lane, not stationary, but 3 minutes from the pit in line to the pit out line. And things on timing and scoring will take a little while to settle out while that pit stop is being executed. And as I said earlier, the other question that remains is what will Robillard Racing do as far as drivers go? Will they put a fresh Stephen McAleer back in? And there is the 10 by the line one more time. 54 minutes, inside 54 minutes. And I guess it's one of those things, you look at the lap times that Kenton Cook is putting in, just another low 44. All that's doing is continuing to build the gap to the cars that run behind him. And so when they do make the stop, whether Kenton Cook stays in or whether he hands it to Stephen McAleer, the gap is going to get bigger, and any error or mistake that you may make in the pit stop will cost less, and or you just have that much more of a cushion. Now the 33 of Greensall in.
.44.25 that time for Kenton Cook, so he's pushing hard. It's almost a full second quicker than his previous lap around. It's within a couple of tenths of his best lap of the race so far. So once again, right at the end of his stint.
Ooh, that was close.
That was close. Nigel Greensall coming into the pit lane. He will hand over, I believe, to Lance Willsey for the final stint. Yep, nice climb of the Englishman.
Kenton Cook doing double duty this weekend, also running in the Michelin Pilot Challenge in the TCR class in his Audi. So he's had plenty of track time.
True.
And once again, an impressive young man. Looks like a basketball player. Tall. We were at a dinner last night for one of the manufacturers in the GTD category, and I was laughing because there were a bunch of ex-race car drivers around, and we were all in that 5'7" to 5'9" kind of range. And then I look at all these young guys, and it must be the antibiotics of the chicken. They're all tall, right?
And a consistently fast lap from Kenton Cook, 1:44.230, just 200ths of a second quicker than his previous lap. Superb.
And what? Just 15 100ths off his best lap. So shows you why he has the championship pedigree that he does and just how good he is. We talked about silver and bronze rated drivers only in this category, but sometimes you have to scratch your head at the rating system a little bit. And when you look at the talent of some of these drivers, if you measured it based upon just what you see in the lap time and consistency and not based on championships and the like, you'd probably move some guys up. Not that they would want that by any stretch of the imagination, because it could take opportunity away, but Kenton Cook is one of those drivers who certainly has immense ability, and he's young. He'll continue to get better as he goes, as the 33 crew gives him a thumbs up, holding him, waiting for the time. The engineers know exactly when they cross the line, and they know how long it takes to get from their pit stop, for their pit stall out to the pit exit line. So they sit there and they time it. They know just how long to hold him and when to send him to make sure that he doesn't run afoul of that 3-minute window. And there's Kenton Cook finally with 51 minutes to go. 51 and 20 seconds. He crosses the pit in line. And we'll roll down to his pit stall. They'll affect the pit stop, and we'll see if there will be a driver change or not for Robillard Racing in their Ligier. Right up to the board. And Stephen McAleer will indeed climb back in. McAleer runs out. He's got not really an insert, but just a piece of padding that he'll use. A little bit of height difference between the two. Couple of inches, and they'll affect that driver change. Once again, they've got time Fuel flow is not exceedingly quick in these cars. It'll be interesting to see. You see the vent can on the right side. The fuel hose is on the left side. Typically on a full fill, the vent operator will wait until fuel begins to bubble up in that can, and then they'll know that it's full. I wonder, there's no reason to do a timed fill because the pit stop takes 3 minutes anyway.
Yeah, but it'll be timed to how much fuel they need to go in, won't it? I mean, they know the fuel flow rate, so it'll be whatever. It's about 45 seconds for a full fill. This is not a full fill. It's 12% less than that with 10 minutes.
But why wouldn't you just go ahead and fill it?
Because you want less fuel on board. You don't want to put in more fuel than you need to.
Yeah. You don't want to be short.
You don't want to be short. You don't want to be short. You do not want to be making that mistake.
I'm sitting here going, how do you eliminate more mistakes? It's a 3-minute time anyway. So maybe they timed it and just said, we'll put 1 more gallon in than what we need, but we're certainly not going to be short. And then McAleer will head back out. What we'll have to wait and see is once he comes past the line the first time and cycles through, then we'll have a much better idea of what our run to the checkered flag is going to look like. Right now, just over 49 minutes to go, and there is the number 4, I should say. I started to say 44. The number 4, Neil Alberico. What a great job this young man has done. Limited prototype experience. All of his racing experience has really been in Formula cars, but he has adapted very well to this IMSA Motorsports. Ligier has done an exceptional job, and you got to feel like that with more time he can become a star in this category. Now think about the number 10 car as well. They have come back from 2 drive-through penalties, one for a service infraction from behind the wall and one for a pit lane speed violation, and yet Kenton Cook kept his head down, stayed focused, and drove that number 10 to the front as Stephen McAleer now exits pit lane. We'll see how the order stacks up when he gets back to the line and get a better idea of what kind of run we're going to have to the checkered flag. 10 shown in the lead when they pitted, and it was Neil Alberico, then McCusker, Schwab, Kazimets.
Yeah, and Schwab is just onto pit lane for his final pit stop of the day.
Yep. And a problem at the exit of turn 2, car backwards. That's an issue because it's blind, and that's the number 2. Lemecki behind the wheel.
Yeah. Oh, that's a shame. Yeah, cause I was just thinking about that actually. Sorry about that, Michael. That was the car that had the problem earlier on, of course, with John Brownson when they what happened? The tire came off the rim or something, didn't it? Or they had a puncture?
Yep.
It stopped out of track, but they got that car back out again. But Michael's just turned that car around. So they're running at the back of the field. There. But hats off to him for getting that car back out in the fray. Neil Alberico, by the way, has retaken the race lead with the pit stop for Kenton Cook.
Oh, don't touch, don't touch. Ooh. Yep, he did. Kind of crinkled the front splitter there a little bit, and we'll have to see if that's going to rub or create a problem that he's going to have to come to pit lane and have it changed. The problem now is if you haven't spent a whole lot of time in these cars, you got to get it into reverse. And I know that sounds like it should be relatively easy, but there's a process with these paddle shift gearboxes, and you've got to be able to work the process to get that done so he can back that car away from the barrier there. And there we go. Headed in the right direction.
Michael's another one who hasn't had very few laps prior to this weekend. He was a multiple pole sitter last season in the MPC category. Didn't do the full season with business commitments. But he's certainly enjoying the opportunity to drive this LMP3 car, and well, at least he was until just now.
We had a class win at Barber, the 3 pole positions that you talked about. But it's difficult. I mean, we've talked about what a great platform this
number 10 car has stopped out on the racetrack.
Uh-oh.
Is it? It's shown on the screen as having stopped out on the racetrack. Is that the car on the exit of turn 5? What's that there? No, that's Michael Lemecki rejoining. There is a car off the road. driver's right, the exit of turn 5. Yes, it is.
It is the 10.
Oh my goodness!
A mechanical
and
issue.
He was absolutely flying on that last lap as well. Oh no, he wasn't. That was the.
Just come out of the pit lane.
Yeah, he just come out of the pit lane. Right.
We were going to wait to see where that car filtered into the order. McAleer had taken it over from Kenton Cook, who established a new track record during that middle stint. McAleer had had a great run in the early going, running in the top 3 the entire time until the pit stop. Then they served a couple of penalties, drive-through penalties. Cook was spectacular behind the wheel, as we've come to expect. Is the right rear tire missing? Is the right rear wheel
yes.
missing?
Ouch. Oops.
Yeah, you see the left front up in the air, and the right rear is the right rear at the apex there and the cut through?
Did it come off?
Full course caution.
Full course caution.
I think it came off. It looks like it's there, and there it is, yep, on the cut through down at the West Horseshoe.
Yeah, so it must have come off then coming through the kink. So that got his attention. All right, well,
even if good news is, even if it didn't separate in the kink, it was loose in the kink, and that certainly got your attention.
That's no fun. So the good news is this will close up the pack. The bad news is we only have 2 cars on the lead lap. That's Neil Alberico in car number 4 who leads, and Austin McCusker in the 47 Motorsports car number 47 in second place. Tony's Kazimets, I'm pretty sure, is a lap down in 3rd position in car number 60.
So McCusker with a lot more experience in type than Neil Alberico has, but we talked about what a talented young driver Neil Alberico is, and obviously Austin McCusker is as well. So this might set up to be quite a shootout. And even though Tony's Kazimets is back, if these two get together, that could change.
Cool.
And I'm sure that the crew's probably on the radio with Neil Alberico going, "You've got this, just do what you've done. Stay focused." The problem is, if you want to say that there's a problem at all, well, no, both McCusker and Alberico will be doing double stints, so they're going to be worn out.
They're going to be pretty tired.
McAleer out of the car, and yeah, you think about
heartbreak for that team.
They had just left pit lane, so for some reason that single lug did not lock up and keep that Michelin tire and wheel on the right rear of that Norma chassis for Robillard Racing. And there are things called keepers on that hub. They're little tabs that pop out a lot of times on some of the hubs that keep that nut on there, but obviously either the keepers didn't work or the nut wasn't on far enough for the keepers to pop up behind them. And that separated, but it could have been a lot worse. Having a right rear leave the vehicle at this racetrack, if you had been up on the banking, even turning in for the bus stop under braking at a high rate of speed, all that could have been a problem. It couldn't have been comfortable going through the kink. Perhaps he felt it before then and was already at a slower speed and therefore was able to keep the car under control. But certainly, it's not like you want to have a wheel ever leave the car, but at the same point in time, the right rear is not the one that I would choose here, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's been a good fortune, but a lot of bad fortune for that Robillard Racing team, run by Mueller Motorsports, based in DeLand, Florida, just down the road from here. So a home race effectively for that team. A German owned Bernhard Mueller, who's run some GT4 cars in the past and hoping to do so again.
So there's a look at the left front off of one of the prototype challenge cars. You can see the center hub. You can't really see the keeper behind the wheel nut, but you see the one big wheel nut, and the keepers are just little tabs that pop up, and they're very difficult to see. But if they're not on there, that nut is going to come off. It's just that one single nut around the front spindle there, and it's going to come off and the wheel's going to depart. And not obviously what happened. That was from the number 4, so a nice tight shot there of the number 4 of Neil Alberico. But
yeah, and Neil Alberico, he's got only Austin McCusker on the lead lap, but McCusker is going to be behind at least a handful of cars that are 1 lap down. Second place on the road behind the race leader is actually the 3rd place car. That's Tony's Kazimitz for Volvo Racing. A really good job by that team this weekend. Jonathan George is right behind him in car number 70. Alex Barron is back at the wheel number 64, having taken over from Naveen Rao at the wheel of that the Star Wars X wing machine in car number 64. Lance Wilsey has also retaken the wheel number 33 car from Nigel Greensall. He's running in 6th position, just ahead of Timo Riga in car number 55. I think all those cars are just ahead of Austin McCusker actually on the racetrack, but McCusker will be 2nd place overall.
Naveen Rao is another story when you talk about people who have a passion for the sport. He has an education for the sport too, I would say, when you think about what it is that he does. He's the VP and General Manager of Artificial Intelligent Products Group at Intel. And when I looked up his education, his undergrad from Duke, his master's in electrical engineering from Stanford, and his PhD in computational neuroscience from Brown.
So I guess it's no surprise that he have a fascination for Star Wars, huh?
Well, and he's got a fascination for what makes things work, and always has from the time that he was a child. I think that's the way he approaches his racing, and really couldn't pick a better partner to race with than Alex Barron, who was always known as a very fast race car driver, but a pretty cerebral one as well. When you look at some of the teams that Alex Barron had driven for in the IndyCar series, Dan Gurney and All-American Racers, Penske Racing, Dale Coyne, RC Aero Blair, Mo Nunn, Sam Schmidt, Team Cheever. I mean, it kind of goes on and on and on, and they picked him because of his speed and his personality. And I think Naveen Rao probably a pretty good pick too there when you're looking for a coach and a co-driver.
So, what, 38 minutes remaining in this 3-hour Scouts of America opening round of the IMSA Prototype Challenge season. Neil Alberico, who leads for IMSA Motorsports, Florida-based team, in the Ligier car number 4 in 2nd position for 47 Motorsports. His car number 47, one in Norma M30, is Austin McCusker from Glen Head, New York on Long Island. And in 3rd position, 1 lap down, originally from Estonia, now based in Mundelein, Illinois, has been there for many, many years, is Tony Kazimitz, who's got a huge amount of experience, driven just about everything that's possible to drive over the years as Tony's.
Because if you gave him an opportunity, he would. It doesn't matter what it is. Make sure your keys aren't in your car out in the parking lot, because if he gets an opportunity to drive that, he may take it as well. He'll drive anything.
And he's another guy who's made a kind of a career out of the sport. He's a very accomplished driver coach. He works with Pabst Racing on the Mazda 8 Indy, the open wheel categories. Also with Cahill Motorsports in the feeder categories, the F1600, the equivalent of what used to be Formula Ford, and which is celebrating its 50th anniversary in this country this season. There'll be at least 3 or 4 major celebrations of Formula Ford this season. Don't miss those. But Tony is just a huge enthusiast, and great to see him running here in the podium position.
And great to see this. It's the Boy Scouts 3-hour from here at Daytona for Prototype Challenge, the 50th anniversary of IMSA. And look at the campers that have come out, the Boy Scouts that are here. I've got a group of Girl Scouts here, and a huge group of race fans. I don't know that I've seen this many cars at the Speedway for the Roar in a long time. The weather absolutely perfect today. And if you're frustrated with this cleanup, don't be, because the safety workers here are doing exactly what they need to do to get that stricken number 10 out of the way. It is difficult to load these race cars on a flatbed, especially the prototypes, because of such the low ride height, and you've got to pick it up carefully so that you're not damaging the machine any more than it already has been.
Yeah, it's difficult enough when it's got 4 wheels on it. It's only got three. So it's a lot more difficult.
And they've done a great job to get it out of the way, and they're going to take the shortest route off the racetrack so we can get back to racing as soon as possible. Meanwhile, go ahead and do the wave in the grandstand. I see the grandstand over in the International Horseshoe and a group of people over there, so I fully expect you to start the wave. No, that's not going to happen. There's a group of Boy Scouts having a good time. They didn't even come for the race cars. They just came for the environment that is here at the Speedway, and come back for the Rolex 24. And I hope a lot of the fans that are down on the infield do exactly that. And a few weeks' time, always a great time to be had here. And with the manufacturers Midway and everything else that happens Rolex 24 weekend, certainly a place you want to be.
Are the lights out on the safety car now? They might be.
I think they may be as well, but the racetrack looks clear of safety vehicles. They have taken the 10 off at the West Horseshoe and will bring it back via one of the service roads. And right now, Neil Alberico leads in the number 4, the first race of 2019 for the International Motorsports Association, the 50th anniversary of IMSA lights out on the safety car.
And you know a few of these guys behind him, or some of these guys behind him, are going to want to try and get past him and get back onto the lead lap, hoping for another full course caution.
Alberico maintaining the pace of the safety car. Green flag waves, racing again at Daytona. What can Austin McCusker in the 47 do right now? Alberico, not a lot of experience at all in a prototype, leads the field down to Daytona. Oh, and lockup out on the outside. Is that the 47? Alberico slides a little bit wide.
That's going to give Jonathan George an opportunity to get alongside him as they head towards the East Horseshoe.
Can't get it done.
Alex Barron looking to the inside of George for second, for third position.
A lot of lockup on these cars. That's the 51.
Yeah, it was awfully tight down there, turn 1 and turn 3, and there's an off there for Garrett Grist. That's going to put him right at the back of the pack.
I'm just not sure if these drivers had gotten their Michelin tires back up to temperature after being behind the safety car for as long as they were. A lot of lockup in turn 1, a lot of lockup into the International Horseshoe on this first lap. Alberico holds down the point back onto the banking out of turn 6. Jonathan George just behind. What happened to Austin McCusker? How far back did he drop? Got just a little wide, a little high there in turn 1. 32 minutes left to go. Round 1 of the 2019 IMSA Prototype Challenge Series. Scouts of America 3 hour through the bus stop after the restart. Under caution the last time because of the right wheel that departed the number 10 from Robillard Racing. Stephen McAleer had just pitted and hadn't gotten even 1 lap in when that right rear wheel departed. Stalled at the West Horseshoe, and he had to go full course caution to get him. Alberico with a great run, limited prototype experience, learning lap by lap, leads the first lap after the restart, hopefully the final restart, and the run to the checkered flag. Now 32 minutes to go.
For the 5 seconds to get back to Austin McCusker in second position.
Take a look at the restart. Jonathan George in the blue and yellow. That McCusker that gets up high.
Kazimierz locked up on the outside, lost a couple of positions.
McCusker a little bit further back, and there's that great run. George trying to get that lap back.
Yeah, but be careful there not to push the issue too hard.
Look at all the lockup that we see. Oh, and there was contact there, a car up the inside. We saw the 51 go off, but from that view you could tell it was not Garrett Grist's issue. He was actually hit by another car that was in the middle. Somebody came up the inside.
Garrett Grist just brought that car onto pit lane.
51 being serviced on pit lane right now. Alberico leads, then McCusker, Jonathan George, but George a lap down. McCusker about 5 seconds, right at 5 seconds behind Alberico.
There goes Garrett Grist rejoining, so he's still on the same lap as all the cars from 3rd on back, so he'll be in the 12th position overall. but from 3rd to 12th, all 1 lap down to the 2 race leading cars. Number 4 of Neil Alberico, number 47 of Austin McCusker.
Right at a half hour to go for Neil Alberico. What would a victory mean to this young man? Steps in to this car, limited laps, didn't get the chance to qualify. Leo Lamelas, a good run in the opening stint from the green flag, handed over to Alberico. Alberico will do a double stint to the end. 2-car with a penalty, full service and closed pits. That's going to be a stop plus 4 minutes. And there's the 74. You can come into a closed pit and do emergency service, but you can't come in and do full service. Let things settle down just a bit. And McCusker dropping.
Well, that's mainly because he's got a whole bunch of cars in between himself and the race leader, and they're all battling for 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. There's a 1, 2, 3, 4-car train with number 64, 60, 75, and 11. They are battling over 3rd position.
And the problem is he's right there in it, and they're all running similar lap times, and they could care less that he walks by.
That's right. There is no agenda at all.
Yeah, we talk a lot about being patient and understanding where you are in the race. Well, guess what? We're inside a half hour to go, and they're battling for a podium spot. Meanwhile, while that takes place, Alberico through the bus stop once again. 47 in there, trying to move forward, but having a difficult time. It almost looks like the cars in front are beginning to pull away just a little bit. McCusker has to be frustrated. He sees those 4 or 5 cars out in front.
But at the same time, Neil Alberico, at this stage at least, he's hoping to do the full championship, but this deal came together literally at the last moment. Just last week, side by side for a position there is Alex Barron and
I think it may have been
Casimir. It was, yes. So he came out ahead.
There's McCusker.
I think it was Casimir just
through turn 2, and the gap stayed the same that time by. McCusker has to get through this traffic, which is not going to be easy. You can see it in front of him. They're all running very similar lap times. If he wants to get to Neil Alberico, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cars in front that he's going to have to clear, and that is not going to be an easy feat by any stretch of the imagination. But like you said, you know, you've got to take stock of what it is that you know you're doing in the championship. If you're Austin McCusker and you're going to run the entire championship, and perhaps the guy that's out in front of you isn't, well, you think championship.
Yeah, that's my point, absolutely. I mean, Neil, as I say, the deal came together, well, certainly less than a week ago, so it's far from guaranteed to be able to run the full championship. We've seen in the past, the IMSA Motorsports, they've had guest drivers come in, win races. Nico Jamin, for one, who's here this weekend coaching for IMSA, by the way, but he wasn't able to do the full season either. So for Austin McCusker at this stage, hey, look, 2nd place would do just fine. He was trying to decide a month or so ago whether to come back here with 47 Motorsports and go for the championship, or to take an opportunity to go to Europe to race in the European Le Mans Series, also in LMP3. I think this is the right decision for Austin McCusker.
As Alberico comes by the line one more time, still at the back of this train is the 47 of McCusker. But, you know, for Alberico as well as IMSA Motorsports, it goes back to looking at it going, what can we do for this young man? He just put us out in front and gave us a race victory. Is there anything that we can do? Is there anything that we can help with to put him in the seat one more time? And championships have been built that way. You've seen it over the years, one race at a time. Yeah. I get that race and I find a little bit more so I can come back for the next one, and a little bit more for the next one. And there have been championships won that way. So
there's some super battles going on here, aren't there? Really, really good. That battle for what is now 3rd place, Tony Casimir has got himself back ahead then, and of Jonathan George, Alex Barron, James French, and Nico Rondet. So it's a 60, 70, 64, 75, and 11 nose to tail there Those are the cars that are lined up behind Neil Alberico, who's making his escape at the front of the field. He's just turning his best lap of the race again, continuing where he was leaving off through that first magnificent first stint for the Californian.
Well, Austin McCusker just got by Jonathan George, but it looked almost too easy to me. I wonder if George has a problem. He had been involved in that battle, that 5-car group, and all of a sudden he's dropped.
He probably, oh yes, he dropped back a little bit, does he?
I mean, McCusker made it look easy going into the West Horseshoe, and
Jonathan George is a pretty heads-up driver.
Well,
I think he realizes that he's not. That's not a battle for him. If he can, if the car behind him is quicker, McCusker a little bit quicker, just let him go, and I'll concentrate on my race. Because certainly for number 70 car, Jonathan George, he and Joel Janko, their focus here this weekend is to win the all-bronze class, and they are in position to do that right now with number 33 car of Lance Wilsey pretty much at the back of that pack of cars, just one lap down to the order leader.
Just interesting, though, the way that transpired, and he just dropped well back and was several seconds off on the pace on that lap. So we have to keep an eye on it. It may be, like you said, they're just saying, hey, let's be smart about this and not get involved in something we don't need to be involved with. But perhaps, too, that 70 a little bit off song. We'll keep an eye on the lap times and see car 11 now with a penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct. It's actually just a warning. I wonder what that was about.
Nico Ronday. The long-time race school driving instructor. Do what I say, not what I do.
Notice I'm not saying a lot because I don't want.
Do the same thing.
Yes. There are certainly skeletons in my closet as far as some of that stuff goes. We don't need to talk about, right?
We'll gloss over some of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, talk about the good job that he's been doing, because that Scarlet was started by Mo Smith. Mo had a difficult start to the race, making his professional debut this weekend. He did the Michelin Sebring Encore at the end of last year to get ready for this season with the Sydney Raceway Motorsport team. And Mo did a really good job to get the car back up into contention by the end of his stint, handed over to Nico, who had a lot of ground to make up to be challenging what was effectively for third position, in that battle at least for third, representing an excellent first time out for Sim Raceway Motorsports.
Neil Alberico through turns 1 and 2 one more time. Just inside 23 minutes to go. Austin McCusker continues to lose ground, and Alberico continues to stretch. I almost feel like Austin can't. He's got good lap times. They're almost matching Alberico's, but he's got those 3 cars in the middle and just cannot get by him. And perhaps, as you said, Jeremy, cooler heads are going to prevail, and he's just saying, you know what, let's just run what we've got here. Let's make sure that, we can come away with some good points for the championship, because a long way to go to get there. I'm not saying you give up and you back off and let them go, but just kind of one of those deals where you have to be realistic about what you've got on a particular day.
Good lap by Tony Scalzo last time around. His best lap of the race so far. He comes to 60 in third place, 144.884.
It's an impressive lap.
It is.
Go to the 44 flat, which is a new lap record that Kenton Cook set earlier, just before that final and fateful pit stop for the 10, 44 flat. But all these guys that are down there around it with best laps down in the mid to low 1:44 and 44 second range. Impressive. And we talked about it early in the show. We talked about it in qualifying yesterday, the level of driver skill here and professionalism. Haven't seen a lot of incidents. We've seen a couple of spins, nothing that was out of the ordinary. Mistakes that you're used to seeing, some cold tire situations and that kind of stuff, but some real good heads-up driving and some hard-nosed racing, which is great to see. It's all been clean. I haven't seen blocking. I haven't seen dirty driving or anything like that. It's all been good up to this point in time. Notice I threw that caveat in there.
With just over 20 minutes remaining then in this 3-hour Scouts of America event. Neil Alberico is stretching away now, 7.5 seconds lead over the number 47 of Austin McCusker, who's still got what, 4 cars I think between himself and the race leader.
He has closed in a little bit there on Alex Barron just in front. So on those last couple of laps, he's seemed to have made just a little bit of ground. Kazimitz with his best lap, as you said, James French also.
Yeah. He made up a play position on that last lap. He was able to find a way past Alex Barron. So James French and car number 75 sharing that car with Cameron Castles, who had a quick spin, I think, didn't he, in the middle of his stint, but otherwise did a really, really good job. And James French continuing that, moving up into 4th position in car number 75 at the expense of Alex Barron.
And Jonathan George, who had been up in that fray, dropped back a little bit. His lap time had dropped back to a 1-minute and 49-second range, has now gone back up into the 146s where he was earlier. So back to a more consistent pace, or perhaps just some type of a small problem on that lap. Maybe something in the car set him off just a couple of seconds. That's when we saw the 47 get by and move forward. Austin McCusker, and now Jonathan George back to the pace that he was running earlier.
Position loss there for Alex Barron. As Nico Ronde moves up into 5th place in car number 11. He's got probably a second and a half or so to make up on James French, who's next in line. But it's Tony Kazimitz who is in 3rd position overall. The best of the cars 1 lap down to our overall race leader. He's got about 3 seconds in hand over James French. And then behind the car number 75 is the battling number 11 and 64, with 11 just having taken that position.
Closing down in the final minutes of the first race of the 2019 IMSA Championship season. The 50th anniversary of IMSA, the 2019 IMSA Prototype Challenge Scouts of America, 3 hour from Daytona International Speedway, where Neil Alberico out in front. Austin McCusker in his Norma chassis doing everything he can do to try to get back to Neil Alberico. But since that last restart with the lapped cars that were between Alberico and McCusker, it's just been a long road to hoe for Austin McCusker. He can't really seem to make much ground. Someone slowed coming off of the bus stop, and McCusker flew by, but still got a long way to go. About 8.5 seconds. It was down inside 6 seconds right after the restart, and Neil Alberico with just an exceptional drive on his 2nd stint. Double stinted. He got in on the first pit stop and has stayed in the car ever since then. We talk about, with his limited experience, still learning every lap, and just an exemplary drive so far. Has not put a wheel wrong. Had a problem in qualifying yesterday with an engine and had to change engines. They missed qualifying. They started at the back and they did exactly what they needed to do. They had a plan. They stuck with it.
There's been battles all the way up and down the field all the way through this race. It's a good one now, just heading out of the East Horseshoe between number 19, which is Kyle Masson, and right ahead of him the red. Well, actually, they just changed position there in Povoledo in car number 25. So I think Kyle Masson has just made that pass. That is for 8th and 9th positions.
Remember, Povoledo had a great run early on. Was battling up in the top 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But Masson, another one of those young drivers who understands prototype racing.
Yeah, and another guy who has his focus on prototype racing right from pretty much the start of his career. Did some skip barber racing, and then set his sights on the Prototype Challenge Series, which he won in 2016.
James French there in the 75, and I was talking to him a little bit earlier about this LMP3 based Prototype Challenge machine versus the Prototype 2 car, the LMP2 car that he runs in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. And what he said, I could just see. He said the platforms are very different, and the damper package, the shock package, is very different. This car moves up and down on the bumps through the bus stop, where the P2 car doesn't. And as I watched that 75 come through the bus stop that last time, you could really see the movement in the chassis that he had talked about. And there's a look at the 60 of Tony Kazimierz, third right now, the final podium spot, a lap down to the leader, Alberico, but a good run for Kazimierz. You think about Wolver Racing, Scott Maxwell in that middle stint, who hadn't been in a prototype in a long time. He put some good laps in. And Bruce Hamilton, you have to give credit to him as well. This is a team deal. All three drivers, if you're going to run three drivers, all three of them have to contribute and keep the car in contention. And Hamilton certainly did that. In the 3-hour races, you can run as many as three drivers.
Yeah. Did you just mention that Tony's just set
no, I did not.
He's just set the fastest lap of the races, Tony. He's got the race leader in his sights as they head toward the bus stop. It's the race leader at the head of this twosome. But Tony Kazimierz is in third position overall, but trying to get his lap back again. He's just set the fastest lap of the race, so he's eclipsed that lap.
So he set the record
earlier by Kenton Cook of 1:44.021 for the Estonian. He's a naturalized American now, but originally from Estonia. Is Tony Kazimierz, and he is charging.
So
Neil Alberico here, there's no point in battling yet. I think he's going to let him go around the outside. Is he? Yes.
Yeah.
Tucks in behind him. Smart move by Neil Alberico.
Let him go, let him go, let him go. I could hear it on the radio from up here, and I don't even have a radio. So a 44 flat and a 44 flat. It was a 44.089 that Kenton Cook turned in. That was the new lap record just before the second pit stop, and then Kazimierz just answered back 6/1000ths of a second faster.
I love it.
6/1000ths.
I love it.
Alberico, McCusker, Kazimierz, and the gap between Alberico and McCusker continues to expand. Not much, just a tenth or two at a time. In fact, you look at the last lap for both of those drivers, it was literally about 0.2 of a second that separated the two. But you keep adding 0.2 and 0.2 and 0.2, and before long it's another second, and then it's two, and that's exactly what Neil Alberico has done. Can't say enough for his drive. We've talked about his limited experience, and he hasn't put a wheel wrong. The lap times have been amazingly consistent.
Yeah, his last 4 laps, 1:45.25, 45.23, 45.15, 45.17 for our race leader Neil Alberico in corner before.
Saw some debris get hit in the bus stop. I'm not sure if McCusker got a part of it or not. It looked like perhaps a small piece of carbon fiber, something like that. But the problem with that is those will cut down tires easily. The other thing that will cut down tires if you run on them a lot is the curbing, the apex curbing in the bus stop. If you get on the back side of it, you can damage the inside shoulder of those right side tires, so you have to be a bit careful about that. McCusker just in front of him. Is that the 64? Alex Barron that he's going to try to get by. Trying to close down. There's the 7. Campos, and they're back to the 47 of McCusker. Fuel should not be an issue for any of these drivers. The one that I would think be the most concerned about, it was the 4 that stopped the earliest, was it not?
Yeah, but only on the first round of pit stops. He did a good job of conserving fuel.
Who was the first car on the second pit stop?
Number 60.
Gotcha.
Which is Tony Kazimierz, who's running in the third position. But I think that was...
It was right on the outside of the window. It was going to be an hour 1, hour 2 to run, and we had heard 57, 58 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. And the next car onto pit lane after number 60 was number 70, 1 lap later. And then the number 11 was 1 lap after that.
And the reason why I asked Jeremy Shaw these detailed questions is because he's still the only person I know at this point in time that can actually keep a lap chart by hand. With all the technology that exists, Jeremy has drawn out his lap chart before the race and keeps one all the time.
Oh, habits die hard, yeah.
You could probably, with a single stopwatch, time the entire field as well. Yeah, half the field.
Yeah. As many as I need to. Actually, I was doing at the Mazda Mini shootout just fairly recently, and there was no official score in there. I wasn't there in the official capacity, but I wanted to see how the kids were doing. So there I was timing just with a cheap watch, doing lap times.
Digital wristwatch.
Digital doing the math to figure out the lap times. Great fun it was. I've done that for years. It was really good fun. I had to go to a Target and buy myself a $20 digital watch to do so.
It's the doing math, the time to me is very confusing. Nico Ronde, who was warned earlier about sportsmanship, I'm still not sure what that was about, as still hanging there on the rear wing of James French in the 75, just right in front, both Ligier chassis. Ronde, another one of those guys that we talked about, exceptional driver coach, good experience, helping his co-driver Smith. They had some problems early on, rebounded from him. James French doing the same thing with Cameron Castles.
Alberico, by the way, our race leader, he's tucked in behind Tony Casals. He's just turned his best lap of the race, a 1:44.90. Really nice drive. It's just a good, measured, consistent drive by Neil Alberico. The team put him in this position to be where he is right now. He hasn't really needed to battle with anybody other than that restart, where he had a couple of guys trying to get a lap back on him. But he's turned good, consistent laps, and just a sensible pace.
Inside 10 minutes to go, 9 minutes, 12 seconds for Neil Alberico, looking for his first IMSA victory, and what a victory it would be.
His first IMSA start, too.
Yeah, absolutely. To win at Daytona International Speedway would be huge, and to take a victory here in the IMSA Prototype Challenge category, as Jeremy Shaw just said, in his first IMSA start, would be quite the feat. He's done a great job since taking over the IMSA Motorsports Ligier chassis. The double stint to the checkered flag, just over 8 minutes to go. Austin McCusker doing everything he can on that restart, just way too much lap traffic in front, still trying to work through some of that traffic. Now the gap, 10.5 seconds to Alberico, but a long way to go. We've seen problems for other cars on track. It's never over. You press to the end. That's exactly what Tonis Kazimets, who runs in the 3rd position, is doing. Just set a new lap record well into his stint on board the number 60 Ligier. So Kazimets on a charge. And we've seen all different levels of experience today. Great performances by teams, drivers, staying focused, few mistakes. And anytime you come to Daytona, the weather is this good, especially on a weekend with the crowd that we have here for the Roar. It's a pretty special one. Across the tri-oval one more time. Alberico still leading as battles continue around. That's the 47, the black Norma of Austin McCusker, trying to move forward, but slipping every lap just a little bit further away from Neil Alberico. It's the 64 just in front. That car is a lap down. It's Alex Barron, who's on board the 64 right now. There's your leader, Neil Alberico. Jeremy, what do you do as a young driver when if you hold on for this next 6 minutes and 50 seconds, you take that checkered flag? You've got a while before the next round at Sebring. You've got time to take that victory if you're Neil Alberico and try to go sell it.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's got to do, and he's got to raise the funding. He doesn't really have any funding himself at all these days. He's a former winner of the Team USA scholarship, was taken up by the Rising Stars Motorsport program as well. It's helped Joseph Newgarden and Spencer Pigot get it all the way up into the IndyCar series. Neil Alberico has been part of that program for several years, but they're not really handing out the money these days, so he's got to find it himself, and he's working really, really hard to do that. He's found, he's made this race happen, And he's going to be working super hard now. He's going to redouble his efforts to make sure he continue this form and continue in the championship. And certainly, as you were saying a little while ago, Alan Nadal at IMSA Motorsports, he's going to be working awfully hard to make something happen as well.
Well, because as a team owner, you want a driver like that in your car. It can help you bring other drivers into your program as well. So you want to be able to build the strongest stable that you can, all while maintaining a business. It does take money to literally make the wheels go around. So really a puzzle that you've got to put together there as McCusker continues to try to get past the 64 of Alex Barron, and Alberico working past the 86 of Dave House.
Been a couple of positions changes over the last few laps also, with the number 11 car, Nico Ronde, moving past James French into fourth position in car number 11 now. So it's Tomis Kazimierz who's in third place. The last car on the lead lap, having overtaken the Alberico 5 or 6 laps ago, and second place on his own now, fully 11 seconds behind the race leader, Austin McCusker in car number 47. But Nico Ronde up to fourth, ahead now James French. Alex Barron is running still in sixth position, and behind him Mikhail Masson is just on this last couple of laps has moved past Jonathan George into seventh position in car number 19. So Jonathan George now in number 70 is in 8th place, but he's still in a good enough position to be able to look at the all bronze equivalent of your Masters class from a few years ago, with the number 33 car Lance Willsey 3 positions further back in 11th place in car number 33.
Closing in on 4 minutes to go this time by, as Neil Alberico comes through the tribal across the start-finish line. The longest he's ever been in a race car, I'm sure, would be 2 hours at the drop of the checkered flag, running that double stint. So a lot of firsts for Neil Alberico this weekend.
Indeed, and I think that his last win would have been back in the Pro Mazda Championship, in the middle run of the Mazda Road to win. That was back in 2015 when he finished second in the championship. So it's been a while for Neil, but this will be a very emotional time for him.
I'm not going to give it to him yet. I've seen that happen before, and I'm not going to do it. I'm going to be really stingy and hold out, giving him the win until the car goes across the line. But right now, everything going just as it should. It'll be interesting at the end of this race if he holds on to get his thoughts. Obviously, a victory would be incredibly special, but a new take on motorsports for him. As we've said, a very different look from what he's used to doing. For Austin McCusker, if he holds on, he's thinking championship. He's come close to it before. So what's it going to take to get one this time? He had 2 wins, 2 second places, finished second in the championship last year. So he knows he needs to collect all the points along the way. And I think that's what we've seen in the latter going here. A very smart, measured drive by that young man, only 20 years old, saying, hey, I want to win when I can, but if not, I'm going to take as many points with me as I go. And
I completely agree. He'll have his 21st birthday in
just a couple of days.
2 weeks for Austin McCusker.
So he'll be 21 when we come back to the Rolex 24. And what a great race to win if you're Neil Alberico. It's the first race of the 50th anniversary season for IMSA, and we talked about that when you think back to the origins of this series and where it all started. Think back to John Bishop and Bill France Sr., who envisioned sports car racing in North America and what it should be. And obviously it's gone through iterations throughout the years and throughout the decades, but in great hands and with a great vision to the future. And you look at the different series that run underneath the IMSA banner, there's something for almost everyone, depending on what it is you want to do. As a problem for the 86, Dave House. What he left a piece of carbon fiber back there somewhere. That was in the International Horseshoe. But to say that you won the first event of the 50th anniversary season is pretty special. You won it at Daytona, the first event of the 50th anniversary season, your first IMSA start. Pretty magic stuff. Closing in on a minute to go, just under a minute. Alberico through NASCAR 3 and 4. He'll have to do one more lap because he'll cross the line with 35, 40 seconds left to go. And here he comes, white flag waves. I'm sure the crew on the radio is saying, just do what you've been doing for the last 2 hours.
Yeah, no need to set a lap record on the last lap, but just bring it home.
And when you look at that, there's really only one more lap car in front that he should have to deal with at all on this lap. You see it there coming out of the International Horseshoe. In front of that car, there's literally nothing until turn 6. So there's only one if he closes in and catches it. It's a matter of just focus forward, just as he's done for the last 2 hours. And really hats off to all the competitors, all kinds of stories throughout the top 5. Lap record for Tony Kazimierz there in 3rd. Austin McCusker doing what he's done throughout last season, being consistent, turning in good performances, being smart, thinking championship.
Yeah, a great drive also for that number 60 team. Looking like they're going to come home with a 3rd position here with Tony Kazimierz. We talked about their run. He was the first of the leading cars to make his final pit stop with just over an hour remaining. So he's going to be fairly tight on fuel here, but he's done a really excellent job. It was Bruce Hamilton who started, the team principal here for Wolver Racing. Wolver, by the way, is effectively a Scottish werewolf. That car has been beautifully driven.
Some days it all goes well. It all goes according to plan. Yesterday it did not in qualifying. Today it did, as Neil Alberico and IMSA Motorsports Ligier see the checkered flag and they take it at Daytona. The first win for Neil Alberico in his IMSA career, in his first start, the first race of the 50th anniversary season for IMSA, and it couldn't have happened in more spectacular fashion. The weather absolutely perfect here at the Roar, and a great crowd on hand to witness it. There are going to be big-time celebrations. As you said, Jeremy, his last victory, you think, back in Star Mazda?
Yeah, I think so. In 2015, he had a difficult time in Indy Lights over the last couple of 3 years. Nothing really went his way. Had some podium finishes, but that was about it. I think his last win was at Mid-Ohio, maybe 3 years ago.
Well, congratulations to Neil Alberico, Leo Lamelas, IMSA Motorsports, a great run, and Austin McCusker, great drive, Tony Kazimierz. And when you look forward into this season, think about the number 10 from Robillard Racing. Kenton Cook had a lap record in there at one point in time. Stephen McAleer, a great drive, and then they had their problems. They're going to end up well back in 17th. Disappointing for them, but we saw good stories, good racing throughout the field today, and it just gives us a view into the future of how good this championship is going to be in 2019.
Yeah, super exciting first round. I think there has been some tremendous racing all the way through the race. Shame about the timing of that those full course cautions. They certainly broke up the battle for the lead, but take nothing away from IMSA Motorsports. Alan Zhao, the entire organisation, they put Neil Alberico in the position. They figured out that was early enough for him to make that pit stop and one more to get to the end of the race. Even if there had been no additional caution periods, they then put him in the position of finding them as the second caution period was perfect for them, and Neil Alberico brought it home from there. But hats off to Alberico and the Leo Lamelas and the entire IMSA Motorsports team.
Thank you very much to Brian and to Jeremy. Brian Till and Jeremy Shaw, who'll be the voices of the IMSA Prototype Challenge for the whole of the IMSA 50th anniversary season. To the victors, the spoils. In this case, it is the checkered flag on the hallowed pit lane here at Daytona International Speedway. IMSA get the first win of this 2019 season. Great to see a Norma on the podium as well, as Neil Alberico heading towards the victory circle, eschewing the opportunity to put the checkered flag outside of the driver's window. All of the races this year you'll be able to see live and in their entirety on IMSA TV. Listen to them on IMSA Radio. No breaks, no blocks. And if you joined that one late and you're in the United States, it will be the 15th of January, NBCSN, 5 o'clock for the highlights, and that will include Jeremy and Brian's race call for that race, the opener for this season. Just been announced that all of the developmental series will be airing on NBCSN, with highlights programmes even closer to race date than ever before. 15th of Jan, 5 p.m. on Eastern Time on NBCSN for the race that is just completed. There's going to be a bit of a party from the IMSA Motorsports team as the red, white and black takes the black and white checkered flag and goes in to pit lane, into victory circle and into the record books. They're the answer to the quiz question: who won the first race of the IMSA 50th anniversary season? And the answer is IMSA. Thanks for being with us this afternoon, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the season. We've got more coming up live later on this afternoon on IMSA Radio. Daytona International Speedway has kicked it off with some side-by-side paint trading, spin and rejoin action. Once again, living up to its reputation as the world centre of racing and the home of speed. From IMSA Radio and IMSA TV, bye-bye from the sunshine in Florida.